the beautiful and sassy slum girl, returns domineeringly after rebirth. First sells herself to the handsome, rich but short-lived, disabled big shot as a wife. Ruan Hanshin, I'm telling you, today you have to marry whether you want to or not. The first second Ruan Hanshin regained consciousness. She heard these familiar words. She instantly felt like her whole world was surreal. Suddenly a bold guess popped in her mind, so she rushed to the bathroom, carefully examining the girl in the mirror with unruly eyebrows and eyes, a face full of collagen. She couldn't believe she had been reborn. At the same time, outside the bathroom, the green tea stepsister Ruan Weici was pulling the scum dad, Ruan Ziming, comforting him with a gentle tone, saying sister just woke up. She might still have resentment in her heart. Dad, don't be angry. Talk to sister properly. Hearing this familiar, tea-like language, her eyes instantly sank. Her face became cold, carefully recalling what happened before. Her own biological mother was visited by the mistress Jiang Qiuyu, stimulated, leading to difficult labor and death from massive hemorrhage. However, this scumdad actually married the old White Lotus immediately, and even gave birth to the green tea stepsister 3 months later, but threw her to her grandmother, ignoring her. What's more ironic is, now the scum dad came to the door. It turned out to be because his precious daughter's fiancé had a car accident half a year ago. Legs disabled, power of the group fell aside, leaving him with nothing. He actually proposed that she marry in place of the green tea stepsister. But in her previous life, she married a rich second generation out of spite. In the end, her husband cheated. Grandma and she both died unnatural deaths. In this life, no matter who this Hua Xiao is, she just wants to protect the people around her. Live this life well. Ruan Hanshin walked out of the bathroom and glared at the father and daughter. The two opened their mouths to mock. Who doesn't know that I, Ruan Hanshin, am a child born of a mother, but raised without a father? Am I right? Dear Dad. At this moment, the scum dad was furious, raised his hand to hit her, cursing that she had no one to discipline her since childhood. That's why she talks to her dad like this. But the next second, Ruan Hanshin easily grabbed his hand and curled her lips in ridicule. The fights she fought in the slums since childhood were more than the times the green tea stepsister called dad. Seeing this, the old White Lotus on the side hurried forward to hypocritically advise her. Be obedient and listen to Dad. Marry the eldest young master of the Hua group for your sister. She also said that marrying over there guarantees no loss. Before she finished speaking, she raised her hand and slapped her hard, ruthlessly threw it over, directly beating the person to sit on the ground with her. But subsequently, she looked down coldly at the old White Lotus from above, sneered and retorted, "What kind of elder are you pretending to be in front of me? If the Hua family is really that good, why don't you let your precious daughter marry over?" However, at this time, the green tea stepsister jumped out to act. Green tea, with tears in her eyes, was planning to speak up and accuse her. But unexpectedly, Ruan Hanshin shouted first to stop her. "Ruan Weici, you'd better shut up too. Neither you nor your mother are any good stuff." At this time, the scum dad hugged the old White Lotus without feeling disgusted, sternly warned her not to be ungrateful, or the Hua family. You won't be able to climb up to them in your whole life. You marry over in these 2 days. Do you hear? Immediately after, she lowered her eyes and twitched the corners of her mouth. Proposed the conditions for her to marry as a substitute. That is a house on West Street, and 1 million. Not a single thing less. The scum dad was about to refuse, but was preempted by the old White Lotus, who agreed, enduring the pain of loss while pretending to be considerate and generous. However, she only found it funny. "Whenever you bring the things over, that's when I'll marry. It's getting late. You family should hurry up and leave." After speaking, she drove the 3 disgusting people out. A few days later at the Hua residence, Ruan Hanshin in black clothes, stepping on 10-centimeter high heels, handsome like no one else. She ignored the servant's obstruction, pushed open the unlocked door, walked straight in, saw in the depths of the dim and dark room. A thin man was sitting in a wheelchair, messy hair, numb eyes. The decadent, world-weary face makes people can't help but feel distressed. She took the initiative, generously introduced herself. "Mr. Hua, first meeting. I think we need to get to know each other." However, the man only then looked up, coldly sweeping over, a hoarse voice. Wrapped in rage, get out. The stubborn Wan Hanshin was not raised on fear. Smiled and said, Mr. Hua, we'll be family from now on. You have to get to know me eventually. Then she walked straight to the floor-to-ceiling window, pulled open the heavy curtains, let the light spill in wantonly, introducing herself again. I'm your new wife, Wan Hanshin. Hua Chun, a legendary genius in the business world, but disabled in both legs due to an accident. Unexpectedly, by a twist of fate, married an unruly slum girl. Wan Hanshin. Hua Xiao's deep eyes were full of coldness. Deep voice stated that he didn't need a wife. However, Wan Hanshin leaned in close, looking back at her husband without fear, with eyes carrying a bit of anger. Clearly stated that the two had already obtained the certificate, legally already a lawful couple. Hua Xiao was left speechless by this sentence. The anger in his eyes was suppressed a little, but inexplicably felt a little irritable in his heart. Lowered his eyes and thought for a moment. Immediately after, Wan Hanshin saw Hua Xiao, took out a black card and handed it over. Seemed to want to dismiss her with money. If your husband takes the initiative to give money, you are a fool not to take it. So she unceremoniously took the card, took the opportunity to propose. This money, consider it as an investment Hua Xiao lent to her when the time comes. Split 50-50. Also guaranteed that investing in her would definitely not let Hua Xiao down. While speaking, her eyebrows and eyes carried a bit of unruly resilience, making her look even more dazzling. At the same time, Hua Xiao looked at her for a moment and then quickly lowered his eyes. He didn't care whether this money was living expenses or investment funds. Just wanted this woman to be a little quieter. Don't disturb him. Who knew hope would be dashed? Just in the next second, suddenly the bodyguard rushed in, claiming that the person beaten by the third young master is now downstairs. Wants an explanation. Wan Hanshin suddenly remembered the rumors outside, as the only pillar Hua Xiao was paralyzed. The current Hua family is in a mess. If it continues like this, the Hua family will be finished sooner or later. At the same time, it will also implicate her. Since we are family, then I will go handle it. Dropping this sentence, she was in the bodyguard's astonished eyes, picked up a baseball bat, walked handsomely to the hall. Equally surprised was Hua Xiao, saw his eyes instantly become obscure, repeatedly muttering that word in his heart, family. Wan Hanshin, who hadn't gone downstairs yet, heard the argument between two men in the hall, full of anger. It was nothing more than Wu's second young master shouting for an apology, and Hua's third young master with a colorful face refused to do so, even cursing. This kind of small scene for Wan Hanshin, who grew up fighting in the slums. It's a piece of cake. She walked downstairs, while banging the baseball bat loudly. This domineering appearance of a female bandit leader immediately made the two brats shut up obediently. Then she carried the baseball bat, greeted Hua's third young master as the sister-in-law. But the unruly Hua's third young master spat a sentence. None of your business. Also mocked, bang. Don't think you can control me just because you marry my big brother. The voice just fell. Wan Hanshin, who is ruthless and talks little, swung the baseball bat and hit the wall. The solid wall was instantly smashed into a big hole. Huge impact force. Even Hua Xiao inside the room thought an earthquake had struck. At the same time, the two brats were immediately made to tremble in fear by the female bandit leader's perfect display of violence. Hua Xiao is terrifying. His wife is even more terrifying. However, the calm butler on the side helplessly wrote in the memo, for words, house renovation. Just at this time, Wu's third young master's big brother, President Wu, walked in with full showiness, sarcastically mocking Mrs. Hua for her good methods, able to tidy up these two little bullies obediently. It's just that it doesn't give my Wu family much face. And Wan Hanshin said lightly, the juniors in the family are making noise. How can we talk about face or no face? But unexpectedly, President Wu actually had the audacity to suddenly lean in close, lifted her beautiful hair, flirted with the beauty with a wicked smile. Wan Hanshin's face instantly sank, just wanted to curse. A man's low voice came. President Wu has good spirits, not reasoning right or wrong with the juniors. Instead, making things difficult for my wife. The previous second, the disabled big shot who said he didn't need a wife. The next second, gave his wife a black card to swipe casually. Wife got flirted with, flashed in to domineeringly protect his wife. Wife fighting, he passes the stick, hearing that his wife was actually flirted with in her own home. Hua Xiao, who never walked out of the room, immediately let the bodyguards push him to the hall. Domineeringly protecting his wife, President Wu has good spirits, not reasoning right or wrong with the juniors, instead making things difficult for my wife. Hua Xiao cannot be provoked. So President Wu immediately bowed and scraped with a smiling face, dragging his younger brother, expressing that he would leave it to Hua Xiao to deal with. But the protective Hua Xiao turned around and ordered the bodyguards to bring a newer baseball bat. Let his own wife vent her anger. At the same time, Wan Hanxin laughed out loud. This man is really protective. Clearly just said 2 sentences. To him, it became suffering a grievance. But the husband is protective. The wife cannot drop the ball. So she immediately put on a cold face, said that President Wu must beat up his younger brother soundly for him to be obedient. Subsequently, she saw the baseball bat handed over by the bodyguard, raised her eyebrows, eyes full of dissatisfaction. At this time, President Wu understood in seconds, helplessly ordered a change for a bigger one. Wu, third young master, who was arrogant just now, had long been cowardly shouting for help, helplessly dragged away by his big brother, not able to escape. So in the Hua family hall appeared President Wu holding a mace, waving tears to beat his younger brother. And Wu, third young master, was jumping up and down, still beaten to wailing like ghosts and wolves. At the same time, Wan Hanxin gloated, treating it as watching a play for free. The butler silently took out the memo again to add, send the bill for house reconstruction to the Wu family. Only the 2 Hua brothers were left lamenting in their hearts. This woman is not ordinary. Finally, ended with Wu, third young master, being beaten, flying into a beautiful curve. Seeing this, Wan Hanxin also felt it was about enough, generously waved her hand to dismiss the 2. Completely didn't notice the husband behind her, still frowning, seemed not very satisfied with this result. But unexpectedly, the next second, Wan Hanxin suddenly turned her head back. Her beautiful hair followed in the air, drawing a beautiful arc, smiled brilliantly at her husband, softly said thanks. The first day the slum girl married the business big shot, she relied on a perfect display of violence to teach the provocateurs who came to the door a lesson. After the Wu brothers left, Wan Hanxin patted Hua Xiao's back to comfort him, mood, mouth saying she wants to tidy up her own children. Hua third young master's right eyelid jumped, immediately protested, unconvinced. The provocateurs are gone. Why still beat me? Immediately after, he hurriedly looked at his big brother for help. But Hua Xiao glanced thoughtfully, said lightly, please, then turned around and went back to the room, meaning to leave it to the wife to deal with. And Wan Hanxin picked up the previous baseball bat, coldly glared at the disobedient brat. Eldest sister-in-law is like a mother. So what if I beat you? Finished speaking, she hit Hua third young master's palm without holding back. At the same time, she pointed out with anger at his lack of progress. First, born as a child of the Hua family, actually can't win fights, can't win arguments, and let people block the door to bully. Second, no respect for elders, no distinction between young and old. I am now your sister-in-law. Third, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. At this time, Hua third young master instantly felt his palm burning. Pain made tears fly wildly, but didn't expect it to stop after just a moment. This made Hua third young master very puzzled. Just like this, not beating anymore? Wan Hanxin explained that beating outsiders is to vent anger. Beating family members is just to make him learn a lesson. Don't just know how to use hands for everything. Immediately after, she shouted at him to wipe his tears and get ready to eat. Hua third young master heard the words family members, instantly stunned for a moment. Felt it sounded pretty good, but soon he began to suspect again. Did he get beaten broken by the female bandit leader? Meanwhile, the butler reported to Hua Xiao. Third young master was taught a lesson by Madame, but didn't get angry. At the same time, the butler also expressed he admired Madame's boldness very much. And after hearing this, Hua Xiao lowered his head and said nothing, just that his deep eyes seemed thoughtful. Just at this time, Wan Hanxin knocked on the door and entered. Said she asked someone to make dishes Hua Xiao likes. Stepped forward, preparing to push him downstairs to eat together. But Hua Xiao just said lightly, he doesn't need it, because not hungry yet. This surprised Wan Hanxin a little. Mature, Hua Xiao, why does he speak like a child throwing a tantrum? So she leaned into Hua Xiao's ear. softly persuaded, family members should eat together. This is my habit. Hope Mr. Hua can also adapt soon. Such a gentle tone, instantly made. Hua Xiao felt like he was a child being coaxed by her, but still nodded in agreement. Seeing Big Brother appearing in the dining room for the first time, Hua third young master was shocked and stood still, secretly guessing, could it be that Big Brother was also beaten by the female bandit leader? Wait for Wan Hanxin to push Hua Xiao to the dining table and instructed the butler to serve the dishes after sixth young master comes back from school. She herself went upstairs to call fifth miss. She had heard the six half-siblings of the Hua family. Personalities are all different. Among them, this fifth miss is even more indifferent and willful. Unexpectedly, the fifth miss she saw in person was more like a gentle and lovely little sweetie. She first stepped forward and enthusiastically introduced herself, then wanted to pull fifth miss downstairs to eat together, but didn't expect for some reason. Fifth miss seemed to have been suddenly stimulated. Crazy shook off her hand and screamed and cried, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." The rumored indifferent and willful Hua family fifth Mississippi actually is just a timid and sensitive crybaby because she was kidnapped by enemies when she was a child, suffered beatings, insults, and various abuses. So after being rescued by the Hua family, had become timid and sensitive. Plus that year father died and mother went crazy. Therefore, during one of her piano performances, a group of audience members who hit a person when they're down mocked her on the spot, belittled her, caused the originally timid and sensitive Hua fifth sister to become even more timid, autistic. Speaking of these past events, Hua fifth sister couldn't help but lower her head with tears streaming down her face. However, at this time, Wan Hanxin's piano sound instantly pulled her out of the sad emotions. Immediately after, she turned her head and looked at the sister-in-law beside her in surprise. The same melody, different from her own sorrow. Sister-in-law's piano sound was more positive and sunny. However, Wan Hanxin suddenly stopped playing, then looked into her eyes, sincerely praised, "You played very well. I like it very much." The affirmation she had never received before made her instantly stunned. Then she heard the sister-in-law say softly, "Your piano sound is a bit painful. I am willing to, in the future time, slowly help you dissolve your pain, because we are family." At this time, she felt a warmth instantly spring up from the bottom of her heart. At the same time, the moved tears fell even harder when Wan Hanxin led the still sobbing Hua fifth sister downstairs to eat. Hua Xiao, Hua third brother, even Hua fifth brother, who just came back from school, couldn't control showing shocked expressions. The funny Hua third brother couldn't help but shake. Could it be that sister was also beaten by the female bandit leader? At this time, the handsome and gentle Hua fifth brother was a little shyly stepped forward and greeted the sister-in-law. Finally, a normal person in the family. Wan Hanxin smiled and asked him to hurry up and tidy up. Eat together. However, as soon as Hua third brother heard the words tidy up, his scalp tightened, flew to drag his brother to wash hands, afraid that if he didn't run fast, the female bandit leader would also tidy up the younger brother. At the same time, Hua Xiao glanced at his newlywed wife in surprise. "Wife, you should know, this is the first time their siblings ate at the same table." The next morning, Wan Hanxin was eating breakfast elegantly. At this time, seeing Hua fifth brother running downstairs in a hurry, she quickly stopped him and asked him to drink a glass of milk. Go to school in the butler's car later. Seeing Hua fifth brother stunned for a moment, thought he didn't like drinking milk, so she patiently explained, drink more milk to supplement nutrition to grow tall, and expressed that if he doesn't like milk, can also change to soy milk. But Hua fifth brother actually picked up the milk, drank it all in one breath, gulp, 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 said somewhat shyly that milk is just fine. Immediately after, Wan Hanxin instructed again. Fifth sister needs to drink more pig liver porridge to replenish qi and blood. That was specially made by the kitchen upon her special instruction. At the same time, Hua Xiao lowered his head gloomily and said nothing. But Hua third brother couldn't help it, looking at the sister-in-law with eager little eyes, asking for his gift. However, at this time, Hua third brother's phone suddenly rang. A delicate female voice coquettishly called him out to drink. He shuddered all over, under the death stare of big brother and sister-in-law. panicked and refused in one breath, and hung up the phone. Immediately stammered and explained to the sister-in-law. It was Wu's second young master who was unconvinced and playing tricks on him. Unexpectedly, Ruan Hanshin was not only not angry, but kindly proposed that as long as he attends class well, she would personally go to school to send him an exclusive big gift. With third brother instantly eyes shining, excited heart, trembling hands. Is the sister-in-law sending a motorcycle or a supercar? At this time, Ruan Hanshin handed over the prepared bento, said she had to go home today. The younger siblings were very happy to receive the love bento. Only Hua Xiao was still a little gloomy, until she placed the last one, bento, in front of her husband. Also said this was specially prepared for Mr. Hua. Hua Xiao then arrogantly lifted his eyelids, flashing little eyes that couldn't be hidden, softly said thank you. At this time, Ruan Hanshin had the illusion of distributing gifts to children in kindergarten. Of course, with third brother eventually also received her exclusive big gift bag. The reborn girl from the slums actually married the disabled business big shot. The second day of the wedding, Ruan Hanshin greeted everyone that she was going back to visit her grandmother. Soon she returned to the slums, saw the grandmother she depended on for life, to prevent grandmother from worrying about her. She also twirled around to show off the new clothes she bought. Also said her husband treats her very well. Just got married and took the initiative to give her money to spend. Hearing that her granddaughter is living well, Grandma also felt comforted in her old age, but still couldn't help nagging about living a good life. At this time, the lively childhood friend Shinai walked in carrying a big bag of vegetables. Said she wanted to make them a delicious boiled fish. During the conversation, Ruan Hanshin, standing by the window, accidentally glanced. Childhood friend Xiaobai was standing downstairs with a few punks. At this time, she suddenly remembered her previous life. Shinai entered the entertainment industry because of lack of money, eventually committed suicide by jumping off a building at a young age. And Xiaobai hung out with punks all day. Later was framed and put in prison, living a new life. She must not let the two repeat the tragic ending of the previous life. So she said a word to Grandma and hurriedly turned and ran downstairs. Aggressively killed her way behind Xiaobai. Sternly warned those punks to stay away from Xiaobai, but didn't expect one. Purple hair pointed at her fiercely, shouted and cursed. Stinky bitch, watch how you speak. Giving you face, aren't I? Ruan Hanshin frowned, suddenly gripping Purple Hair's finger tightly. She glared and shouted, I hate it when people point at me. As soon as she finished speaking, she applied a little force, and the sound of a finger fracturing was heard. Immediately after, she raised her long leg, snatching the baseball bat from Purple Hair's hand in one smooth motion. Swift and decisive. In no time at all, she had beaten several of the punks to the ground. Ruan Hanshin, on the other hand, was unharmed. Carrying the baseball bat, she glanced disdainfully at the small fry on the ground. Is that all you've got? Of course, in the end, she still called the police car to take them all away. After dealing with the punks, she glared fiercely at Xiaobai, sternly warning him, if you dare to go down the wrong path, don't blame me for breaking your legs. Xiaobai, used to being disciplined, immediately squatted down, holding his head. I know. Everything Hanshin Jie says is right. Soon it was evening. Ruan Hanshin carried the packed food back home. Just as she walked into the house, the three little ones were already eagerly waiting for her to return. They stared at the bag in her hand with eyes full of anticipation, wanting to see what delicious snacks their sister-in-law had brought them. She smiled and explained, these aren't snacks, just some leftovers. She then asked if they wanted to eat some too. Seeing that the lunchbox contained ordinary home-cooked dishes, they inexplicably felt a sense of warmth. The three little ones clearly wanted to eat with all their hearts, but their mouths stubbornly acted sundera, saying if you insist on giving it, and since it's edible, we guess we can have a bite. Then Ruan Hanshin turned to Hua Xiao, asking, would you like to have some too, sir? Hua Xiao, who had been stealing glances at his wife, was suddenly asked and froze for a few seconds. He immediately lowered his head, pretending to read a book, and arrogantly refused. But the slap in the face came too quickly. The very next second, a growling sound came from his stomach. At this moment, Ruan Hanshin couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. This man was truly duplicitous. The food was obviously not enough for 5 people, so she immediately said she would go make some more. After speaking, she turned and went to the kitchen. Hearing that their sister-in-law was going to cook personally, the 3 little ones stretched their necks in anticipation. Only Hua Xiao sat gloomily holding his book, feeling that he had lost face. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang. When Ruan Hanshin opened the door, she saw a bouquet of fresh flowers with a note attached. "My beautiful Mrs. Hua." The reborn Ruan Hanshin voluntarily married the wealthy and handsome disabled Tycoon. Who would have thought the Tycoon was actually a tsundere, an awkward man? He loudly claimed he didn't need a wife, but every time something happened, he would be the first to rush out and block in front of his wife. He would also incidentally brew a jar of old vinegar over the smallest trifles. Just today, President Wu actually sent his wife, Ruan Hanshin, a bouquet of roses representing love. He even struck a pose he thought was explosively handsome and spouted a bunch of greasy, cheesy love lines. But when Ruan Hanshin heard this idiot actually thanking her for helping to teach his younger brother a lesson, she instantly felt speechless. Is this man a masochistic fool? 2 days ago, he had just witnessed her perfect display of violence. Why would he come rushing back today? But regardless, she didn't want to have anything to do with this man, so she politely refused, kindly reminding him that sending flowers with such fanfare would alert the media. However, upon hearing this, President Wu leaned in closer, his tone flirtatious. "It's never a loss to have a scandal with a beauty. Otherwise, how about a candlelight dinner tonight?" Just then, Hua Xiao wheeled himself out, his face dark and his tone icy. "Want to eat? How about eating with me?" President Wu. Hearing this, Ruan Hanshin was stunned for a moment. It was the first time someone had stood in front of her, and the feeling was somewhat novel. At the same time, waves of warmth flowed through her heart. She immediately snapped back to reality, smilingly following her husband's lead. "The Hua family will definitely welcome you warmly then. Goodbye, President Wu." The couple sang in harmony, like the black and white twin killers. President Wu instantly felt the abuse of a mixed doubles match. After the man was driven away, Hua Xiao turned his head somewhat uncomfortably, faintly stating that she could come to him for this kind of thing. Ruan Hanshin looked at the wheelchair, turning away, stunned for a moment, before revealing a brilliant smile and sweetly saying, "Okay." After a while, she naturally walked into Hua Xiao's room, carrying medicine and water, reminding him, "Husband, it's time for medicine." Hearing her voice, Hua Xiao was startled, instinctively telling her to put down first. But Ruan Hanshin suddenly leaned in close, teasing him like coaxing a child. "The water temperature is just right. Mr. Hua isn't afraid of the medicine being bitter, is he?" Hua Xiao looked up at his beautiful wife, his eyes dark and unreadable. Just then, a sharp pain suddenly shot through his leg. The pain instantly turned his face pale, and large drops of cold sweat immediately broke out on his forehead. It was the third day of their marriage, and Hua Xiao finally had a chance to date his beautiful wife alone. Who would have thought that the younger siblings, lacking any tact, would all pop out to join the fun, making so much noise his head was about to explode? It turned out that last night, Hua Xiao's leg had suddenly started hurting. At the same time, Ruan Hanshin sensed something was wrong, but encountering this situation for the first time, she didn't know what to do and panicked. Fortunately, Butler Wen came running at that moment, bringing Hua Xiao's painkillers. But when she snatched the medicine and saw the name on the bottle clearly, she was instantly in disbelief. Hua Xiao was actually taking this kind of medicine. One should know that while this medicine stops pain, it is very easy to get addicted to and causes harm to the body. So she squatted by the wheelchair and patiently explained all the side effects to Hua Xiao, advising him to take less and strive to cooperate with treatment. Then she placed her hand on the back of Hua Xiao's hand, her eyes full of worry, and said softly, "You are the pillar of our family. You can't just fall like this." Our family, a phrase so warm it was impossible to refuse. So Hua Xiao nodded. At the same time, enduring the severe pain, he carefully recalled that he had hired the best experts for consultation and prescriptions. Normally, this situation shouldn't happen unless someone messed with it. Thinking of this, his face instantly became gloomy, his eyes filled with coldness. At this moment, Ruan Hanshin also thought of it. Since the other party could tamper with the medicine, then the previous checkup reports and such were very likely problematic too. So she curled her lips into a smile, hooking her index finger slightly as a hint. "Mr. Hua, are you interested in spending a two-person world with me tomorrow?" Hua Xiao immediately understood tacitly. "If madam is willing, I am happy to oblige." Meanwhile, the butler on the side was happy for the iron tree that was finally blossoming. So early the next morning, Ruan Hanshin drove Hua Xiao, preparing to secretly go to another hospital for a re-examination. But before the car even started moving, she suddenly heard 3 enthusiastic voices calling sister-in-law. She instinctively looked out of the car, only to see a third brother enthusiastically raising his hand, wanting to carry the bag for his sister-in-law. Her fifth sister looked on with envy, but shyly expressed that she wanted to go shopping with her sister-in-law. Meanwhile, her sixth brother, blushing, awkwardly said he could go too. Helpless as there was serious business to attend to today, she smiled and waved her hand, saying, next time for sure. She completely missed Hua Xiao beside her, whose lips were pressed down in displeasure, his eyes glaring so hard they were about to pop. As the car sped away, it left the 3 little ones behind, their ears drooping and whining. Why could Big Brother go out to play with sister-in-law? Finally ushering in their 2-person world, the atmosphere in the car was very relaxed. Wan Hanxin smilingly asked Hua Xiao to tell her stories about the siblings when he had time. Hua Xiao, in a rare good mood, naturally agreed. But unexpectedly, just after leaving the Hua residence, they discovered a car following closely behind. At this moment, Hua Xiao finally voiced his suspicion. The biggest beneficiary of his injury was the son of the Hua family's aunt, Cheng Lin, who was also the acting general manager of Hua Corporation. Wan Hanxin raised an eyebrow, her tone very arrogant. I don't care if he's a Zhao, Qian, Sun, or Li. The female boss of the slums married the disabled tycoon of a wealthy family. Protective of her own, she already regarded the Hua family as her own cubs. But she didn't expect someone would dare to tamper with her husband's medicine and even secretly follow him when she took him to the hospital. This instantly ignited Wan Hanxin's damn competitive spirit, so she suddenly slammed the accelerator to the floor. Spinning the steering wheel rapidly, she finally pulled off a beautiful drift, shaking off the car behind them. Finally, the two arrived at a famous hospital in the West City. After a careful examination, the doctor informed them of a completely different result. Hua Xiao's legs could fully recover. He just needed a minor surgery and active cooperation with treatment. Hearing this good news, Wan Hanxin stroked Hua Xiao's hair with some heartache. Hua Xiao, who had been driven to car sickness, let his wife play with his hair. Just then, the nurse brought the lab results for the painkillers. Sure enough, the so-called painkillers had long been secretly swapped for harmful drugs. If taken for a long time, it would easily cause irritability, rage, and even anorexia. Hearing this, Wan Hanxin couldn't help but recall the reports about Hua Xiao's suicide in her previous life. It seemed Hua Xiao's death in the previous life was inextricably linked to this medicine. At this moment, a chilling, murderous intent instantly surged in her eyes. No matter what, in this life, no one would think of touching the cub she was raising. While angry, the strength with which she rubbed President Hua's hair unconsciously increased a bit. However, the sensitive Hua Xiao thought she was somewhat afraid, so he raised his hand and gently placed it on the back of hers. Looking up, he comforted her with gentle eyes, saying he would solve these problems. Unexpectedly, Wan Hanxin curled her lips into a smile. He was the one injured, yet he was comforting her in return. However, the seemingly warm scene actually held different thoughts for the couple. Find a way to take down the Chung family as soon as possible. Act quickly. Can't let my wife worry. This blatant display of affection almost blinded the doctor's titanium alloy single dog eyes. In order not to worry the 3 little ones at home, knowing they went to the hospital today, the two then went to a nearby mall, preparing to buy something. Sitting cross-legged on the sofa, Hua Xiao watched with eyes full of doting as his wife picked a tie for him, adhering to the principle that whatever his wife picked was definitely the best. Suddenly, his tie was untied by Wan Hanxin, who had walked up. His body stiffened slightly. Then Wan Hanxin leaned over, tying the newly selected tie for him, muttering to herself, "Is this color too flashy?" They were clearly newlyweds, yet Hua Xiao felt more like a child being coaxed by his mother to try on clothes, which made him slightly displeased. So he suddenly grabbed his wife's hand, looking up and staring deeply at his beautiful wife. "Then thank you for your trouble, madam." The man's warm breath sprayed onto Wan Hanxin's face, and a blush instantly spread across her face. Only then did she realize that the two seemed a bit too close. So she stood up quickly, somewhat shyly. At the same time, Hua Xiao lowered his head, hiding his slightly flushed cheeks very well, the corners of his lips curving up with spring-like warmth. One should know, this was the first time he had seen his wife reveal such a shy, girlish expression. "Cousin." Suddenly, a sharp female voice rang out. Looking towards the sound, they saw a woman with a head full of pink hair staring at Ruan Hanshin with eyes full of hostility. The wonderful atmosphere was instantly interrupted, making Hua Xiao narrow his eyes in displeasure. He introduced in a low voice, "This woman is Aunt's daughter, Cheng Yi." Hearing this, Ruan Hanshin's eyes instantly turned cold. One should know, the person harming Hua Xiao was exactly Cheng Yi's brother. Immediately, a small evil idea flashed in her mind, so she strode towards cousin Cheng Yi, generously introducing herself. She even revealed a harmless, innocent smile, asking her cousin to show her around. The slum girl married the wealthy and handsome disabled tycoon. After marriage, it was rare for the couple to go shopping alone. Ruan Hanshin carefully selected a tie for her husband and tied it for him personally. But just when the atmosphere was perfect, a cousin with a head full of pink hair suddenly popped up. Cheng Yi, who was also the biological sister of Hua Xiao's mortal enemy. The cousin looked at the slum-born Ruan Hanshin with disdain, although she readily agreed to show them around with her mouth. In her heart, she was secretly plotting to prank this country bumpkin. So the cousin brought Ruan Hanshin to a high-end makeup counter, smilingly picking up a lipstick to recommend, claiming it was the most popular color in high society. In reality, it was the Death Barbie pink that looked ugly on anyone. Immediately after, she leaned in slowly with ill intentions, wanting to trick her into applying it and then mock her mercilessly after she made a fool of herself. Who would have thought Ruan Hanshin had already seen through the cousin's trick? Her eyes instantly became sharp, and she gave a light snort. The next second, she grabbed the person tightly with one hand. With just a little force, she pinned her firmly against the counter. Then, looking down from above, she stared coldly at the cousin and spoke icily. "Let cousin try this beautiful lipstick first." Then, ignoring the other party's repeated pleas for mercy, she smeared a thick layer of Death Barbie pink on the cousin's lips. The salesgirl on the side, who had just been scared pale and screaming, now couldn't help but laugh out loud, seeing the woman's comical lips. Because this look was truly too funny. Ruan Hanshin then threw the lipstick fiercely onto the cousin's body, saying it was a gift from her. Before leaving, she didn't forget to take out the black card her husband gave her, paying for all the damaged items together, leaving the comical cousin paralyzed on the floor, staring angrily but impotently at Ruan Hanshin's retreating back. Soon, the news of Hua Xiao accompanying his delicate wife to sweep the mall and show off their love reached Hua Xiao's mortal enemy, Cheng Lin. Cheng Lin's expression instantly became sinister and vicious. He didn't expect that after spending so much money, he still hadn't killed Hua Xiao. One should know that Hua Xiao was a legendary genius in the business world. Back then, as soon as he made a move, he immediately multiplied the Hua assets several times over. Later, he became a tycoon in high society whom no one dared to offend. This time, because he broke his legs in an accident and gradually became depressed, Cheng Lin found an opportunity to become the acting general manager of Hua Corporation. Ambitious, he was not satisfied with this. He greedily wanted to completely take over the Hua Corporation. That was why he wanted to lay a murderous hand on Hua Xiao. Just then, his cell phone suddenly rang. As soon as the call connected, he heard his sister Cheng Yi angrily cursing Ruan Hanshin nonstop. Then Cheng Lin said in a sinister tone, "Let the woman from the slums see how high society kills without spilling blood." After hanging up, his face was twisted. "Hua Chun, since your wife is so tactless, I'll start with her." The slum girl voluntarily married into the top wealthy Hua family with numerous siblings. Only a few days after entering the door, the siblings with different personalities were completely conquered by the warm sister-in-law. Today, as soon as Ruan Hanshin returned home, she distributed the snacks and clothes she specially bought to the siblings one by one. The siblings were very happy to receive the gifts. Each one sweetly thanked sister-in-law. At this moment, the butler suddenly handed over an invitation from old Master Gu, saying it was a banquet held specifically for an extremely rare orchid. Ruan Hanshin was stunned for a moment, afraid that the Cheng siblings were preparing some trick again. So she exchanged a glance with Hua Xiao. After confirming the look, she heard Hua Xiao say faintly that it was inconvenient for his body, so let Madame represent the Hua family to attend. At the same time, Ruan Hanshi nodded, just considering which brother or sister to bring along. Hearing this, the three little ones immediately jumped out, begging with eyes full of anticipation for sister-in-law to pick them. Going to some banquet wasn't important. The most important thing was to be with sister-in-law. This made Ruan Hanshin troubled instantly. She couldn't bear to see any sibling disappointed. So she simply waved her hand and packed all three of them to go. Soon it was the day of the banquet. The magnificent hall was gathered with celebrities. Very grand. Among them, cousin Chung, he was maliciously introducing Ruan Hanshin to the purple-haired woman beside her. The grand young mistress of the Hua family actually comes from the slums, behaves vulgarly, and openly entangles with President Wu. While she spouted nonsense, her eyes were full of the triumph of a successful scheme. It turned out the purple-haired woman was the Hua family's fourth miss, Hua Qianqian, who had just returned to the country. She was provoked into anger by a few words. Crossing her arms arrogantly, she said, "A woman from the slums is not worthy of my excellent big brother at all. Don't dream of me calling her sister-in-law." Just then, someone whispered, "Mrs. Hua is here." So Hua fourth miss instinctively looked up, only to see a tall, beautiful woman wearing an exquisite long-tailed gown, slowly walking in with three Hua family juniors. Her whole body exuded sheer elegance and nobility, like a queen descending. At this moment, Hua fourth miss stared straight ahead, unable to help murmuring in a low voice, "This face, this aura. It's not that she's unworthy of my brother." She completely failed to notice Chung Yi beside her, rolling her eyes so hard they almost fell out. Chung Yi wanted to continue making up nonsense, but unexpectedly, the pampered Hua fourth miss turned and left impatiently, too lazy to even pay attention to her. Ruan Hanshin, seeing the siblings eating happily around the dining table, relaxed her tense nerves slightly. But unexpectedly, trouble came knocking again. The female boss of the slums voluntarily married into the top wealthy family beset by internal and external troubles. Outside, there were the tiger watching Chung's siblings plotting against her husband. Inside, there was the pampered and unreasonable Hua fourth miss who disliked her. At the orchid banquet, Ruan Hanshin made her first appearance representing the Hua family with her juniors. Suddenly, the crowd stirred. Vaguely, someone seemed to shout, "Hua Qianqian, what are you doing?" Hearing this, Ruan Hanshin's expression darkened. Has Hua fourth miss returned? She immediately walked towards the sound in her 10 centimeters high heels. She saw Old Master Gu's beloved orchid, knocked to the ground by someone unknown, and next to the corpse of the orchid stood a pale-faced Hua fourth Mississippi. Hua fourth miss instantly panicked, defending herself palely and weakly. "Someone pushed me, that's why." But before she could finish, the furious Old Master Gu ordered sternly, "Please escort Miss Hua out immediately. From now on, the Gu family does not welcome people from the Hua family." Instantly, the whole venue was in an uproar. Old Master Gu was openly falling out with the Hua family. Someone even mentioned that Hua Xiao became disabled not long ago, and now he was being dragged down by his sister. At the same time, listening to the noisy discussions around her, Hua fourth miss, no matter how dull, realized she had caused a huge disaster. Her mind went blank, thinking only that she must not cause trouble for her big brother, nor implicate the Hua family. Holding this thought, she lowered her head deeply and apologized to Old Master Gu, trying to appease his anger. But the more unlucky the Hua family was, the more proud some people became. Chung Yi leaned close to Hua fourth miss, seemingly speaking up for her cousin, but every word was pinning the unverified crime onto her head. Just then, she suddenly felt someone tap her from behind, so she instinctively turned her head. Unexpectedly, Ruan Hanshin gave her a fierce, resounding slap, sending her directly to the ground. Immediately after, she crossed her arms, her eyes cold and sharp. "We share an honor and disgrace. Our family is in trouble, yet you're gloating? You must apologize to Qianqian for this." Hua fourth miss abruptly looked up with tear-filled eyes, looking at her sister-in-law in disbelief. At the same time, Chung Yi, clutching her burning face, shouted angrily at Ruan Hanshin, "Why should I apologize? Having lost all face after being slapped in public." Chung Yi instantly flew into a rage and lunged forward. Ruan Hanshin stood calmly in place, not moving a muscle, but her expression was dark, and her eyes were full of ruthlessness. Suddenly, her long legs kicked out fiercely, her wide skirt flying in the air. Chung Yi cried out in pain, her body thrown backward by the force. After taking a brutal kick, the terrified Chung Yi shook like a sieve and finally whispered an apology to her fourth miss. But Ruan Hanshin was clearly dissatisfied with the volume. She raised her eyebrows slightly, the corners of her lips curling into a wicked smile. "Cousin, your voice is so small. Is your throat broken? Do you want me to help you fix it?" Chung Yi instantly shuddered and hurriedly raised her volume to apologize to her fourth miss. The woman, who was weak and incompetent in her past life, decided to release her wild nature after rebirth, teaming up with her spoiled sister-in-law at the high society banquet to severely teach the green tea who dared to provoke them repeatedly. Looking at his beloved object destroyed on the ground, old Master Gu was heartbroken and shouted loudly, ordering the whole family to leave his orchid banquet. Meanwhile, Ruan Hanshin was carefully thinking that if she could successfully revive the orchid, she could help the whole family survive this undeserved calamity. It should be known that in her past life, she had studied orchids specifically to help her husband curry favor with the Du family. So, holding her fourth Miss's hand neither humbly nor arrogantly, she walked up to old Master Gu and spoke slowly and calmly. "Old Master Gu, don't be anxious yet. I believe my child is not someone so unruly and sensible." At the same time, her fourth Miss felt warm inside. She didn't expect her sister-in-law, whom she had never really met, to believe in her. But old Master Gu snorted coldly, pointing out with lingering anger that the whole family had an inescapable responsibility for this. However, Ruan Hanshin still wore an elegant smile. "Old Master Gu is right. The whole family was in the wrong first, and we should take responsibility." As she spoke, she slowly squatted down, picked up the dying orchid from the ground, and proposed a bold suggestion. She could revive this extremely difficult-to-raise orchid within 3 months. Otherwise, the whole family would be willing to pay a price that satisfied the old master as an apology. Old Master Gu, who had just thought she had some guts, now saw her as simply young and arrogant, not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Saving this kind of dying orchid was as hard as ascending to the heavens. Just then, a vaguely familiar man suddenly interjected, "Grandpa, since Mrs. Wu has said so, why not let her try?" Old Master Gu glanced sideways at the man, his expression softening slightly as he nodded in agreement. And this man was the doctor who had treated Hua Xiao a few days ago. A slouching doctor turned out to be a member of the Gu family. This exceeded Ruan Hanshin's expectations. However, now she didn't want to end the matter so hastily. She immediately proposed checking the surveillance to catch the person behind the scenes who framed the whole family. As soon as these words came out, they were met with strong opposition from Chung Yi, clearly showing a guilty conscience. So Ruan Hanshin lunged forward, forcefully gripping Chung Yi's jaw, her eyes holding 6 parts anger and 4 parts murderous intent. "What are you excited about? Could it be that you did it? Are you scared?" Chung Yi, scared silly, fiercely swatted Ruan Hanshin's hand away and tried her best to argue. At that time, her fourth miss was on her tiptoes. Anyone could have pushed her down. Hearing this, her fourth miss, the person involved, instantly changed her expression, frowning as she questioned, "How do you know the details so clearly? Unless you were right beside me looking for a chance to strike?" Everyone attending the orchid banquet today was a savvy member of high society. They understood immediately upon hearing this. Overwhelming accusations, accompanied by strange looks, all crashed down onto Chung Yi. At this moment, the guilty Chung Yi was so panicked she almost begged them to stop hitting her. However, the arrogant sister-in-law and the spoiled sister-in-law were now like demons from hell, slowly approaching step by step. After the disabled Tycoon was forced to marry a girl from the slums, he always felt like a cub raised by his wife. This made him very unhappy, especially when he heard about what happened at the orchid banquet. Her fourth miss, who was framed, originally had a spoiled personality, and now with her sister-in-law's backing, she was even more brazen. She lunged forward and gave Chung Yi a fierce, resounding slap. The tiny Chung family now dares to bully the dignified fourth miss of the whole family? Immediately after, Dr. Gu ordered that the Gu family would no longer welcome anyone from the Chung family. This statement not only slapped Chung Yi in the face, but also embarrassed the entire Chung family. Therefore, Chung Yi, paralyzed on the ground, gritted her teeth in anger, her eyes full of ferocity. However, Ruan Hanshin surprisingly found that she had become famous in one battle. Socialites gathered around to greet her enthusiastically. At the same time, Fourth Miss and fifth sister held tightly onto their sister-in-law, one on the left and one on the right, afraid she would be snatched away. Just then, beautiful piano music instantly attracted everyone's attention. Her fifth sister, who loved piano, had eyes that lit up immediately upon hearing such moving music. At this time, Piano Master Yuan began another highlight of the orchid banquet, listening to music to select a disciple. At this moment, some ill-intentioned women took the opportunity to intentionally bring up her fifth sister's failed piano performance years ago. They maliciously egged her on to go on stage and try, actually wanting to see her make a fool of herself again. Sensitive, her fifth sister immediately buried her head low upon hearing this, her nose stinging. However, her fourth miss immediately blocked her sister, glaring angrily at these gossips and warning them loudly to be careful, or her sister-in-law would teach them a harsh lesson. At the same time, Ruan Hanxin also retorted unceremoniously, Master Yu's standard for accepting disciples is certainly not based on whose mouth is more vicious. Just then, the music stopped abruptly. Master Yu on stage stood up elegantly, looked toward Hua fifth sister in the crowd, and warmly invited her to come up and try. Hua fifth sister, suddenly named, was instantly stunned. Meanwhile, Ruan Hanxin suddenly held her hand, her eyes warm and full of strength, encouraging her softly, "Don't be nervous. Be brave. Our whole family believes you can do it." Hua fifth sister nodded with tears in her eyes. But when she sat in front of the piano, the psychological shadow of many years made her nervous fingers stiff. It was her sister-in-law's repeated encouragement and comfort that made her determined not to disappoint her. She had to be brave. She closed her eyes tightly and calmed her heart, the timid look from before completely gone. In an instant, a string of moving notes spread from her fingertips throughout the hall. At this moment, she was completely immersed in the world of piano, like a music elf who had accidentally fallen into the mortal world. As the last note fell, thunderous applause rang out in the banquet hall. Master Yu, moved by the music, immediately decided to accept her as an introductory disciple. Hearing this heavenly news, Hua fifth sister, Ruan Hanxin, and all the Hua family members were very excited. So that night, the Hua family started a party. But while they were celebrating enthusiastically, Hua fourth miss quietly walked into her eldest brother's room. Facing her brother's powerful aura, she timidly called out, "Big brother," and turned her face away in fear. Immediately after, she heard her brother's stern reprimand. As a member of the Hua family, you can't distinguish good from bad and handle matters without any defense. Do you expect your sister-in-law to protect you for your whole life? She lowered her head in guilt, her lips pressed tightly together. Just then, Ruan Hanxin, hearing the noise, suddenly pushed the door open and entered, interrupting Hua Xiao's scolding. Protecting them for a lifetime isn't impossible. However, Hua Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly and asked somewhat defensively, "Aren't you pampering the younger siblings too much?" At this moment, Hua fourth miss took the chance to grease her soles and slip away, leaving her sister-in-law alone to coax Hua Xiao nicely. However, when Hua Xiao held Ruan Hanxin's hand, he suddenly pulled hard, dragging his wife into his arms. The next second, he suddenly brought his face close, staring deeply into her eyes, and spoke slowly, "Madam, you seem to have forgotten that I am an adult male, and also your husband." The business tycoon, whose legs were accidentally disabled, had actually married an unruly girl from the slums. But after marriage, he always felt that his wife treated him like a cub rather than a husband. This feeling made him very unhappy. So today, Hua Xiao took the opportunity to pull Ruan Hanxin into his arms. His deep eyes gazed at his beautiful wife, his tone carrying a hint of resentment as he said, "I am your husband. You can rely on me a bit more." Ruan Hanxin instantly blushed shyly. Her fair fingers tapped lightly on the man's solid chest. She replied with a bit of shyness, "Then I will respectfully obey." However, Hua Xiao suddenly moved his face closer bit by bit, just as their eyes met. Hua fourth miss suddenly burst in, shouting, "Sister-in-law, the orchid is bad." At the same time, Ruan Hanxin got up in a panic and took the opportunity to escape. She saw that old Master Gu's orchid was drooping. Hua fourth miss was so panicked she was about to cry. Ruan Hanxin also looked grave, unable to figure out exactly what went wrong. It seemed she still had to go to the West District, find that old grandfather from her past life, and beg for the ancient book on orchid cultivation. Then, she pretended to be relaxed and comforted fourth miss not to worry, saying she would find a way. Early the next morning, after Ruan Hanshin went out, her childhood friend Xiao Bai ran to the Hua house. But as soon as he saw Hua Xiao in the wheelchair, he didn't look happy. Sensing this, Hua Xiao asked coldly, "Who are you? What do you want with my wife?" However, Xiao Bai immediately retorted in an unhappy tone, "Sister Hanshin wasn't bought by your Hua family. Can't we friends come to visit her?" Hua Xiao raised an eyebrow and explained that Ruan Hanshin had gone to the West District early in the morning. Before he could finish, Xiao Bai, his expression changing drastically, suddenly stood up. The punks Ruan Hanshin had taught a lesson before we're in the West District. They would definitely seek revenge. Meanwhile, Ruan Hanshin, who hadn't found the book, was walking dejectedly on the streets of the West District. Did her rebirth cause a butterfly effect, causing that ancient book to disappear? Suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind. She instinctively turned her head and saw Xiao Bai actually together with Hua Xiao. Before she could ask what was going on, she was surprised to see the book Xiao Bai handed over. It happened to be that very ancient book. Just then, two wild dogs suddenly rushed out, barking fiercely at Ruan Hanshin. Seeing this, Xiao Bai immediately pulled Ruan Hanshin behind him and blocked the front to protect her. At the same time, Hua Xiao noticed that his wife's hand was actually being held by a man. His face immediately darkened, and he warned sternly, "Mr. Xiao, please watch your boundaries." However, Xiao Bai shouted unconvinced, "Sister Hanshin is afraid of dogs. I have always protected her." Hua Xiao furrowed his brows and immediately retorted, "Now I am her husband. I will protect her." Two grown men were actually arguing on the street like children over two dogs. Ruan Hanshin, standing aside, felt a bit speechless watching them, so she quickly stepped forward and patted Xiao Bai's head. At the same time, Xiao Bai secretly made a provocative gesture at Hua Xiao, making Hua Xiao hold back a bellyful of anger. After Xiao Bai left, he asked sourly, "Your relationship seems very close." Ruan Hanshin naturally mentioned that Xiao Bai and Shunai were like family to her. Then Hua Xiao suddenly suggested that Ruan Hanshin talk more about herself. Ruan Hanshin found it a bit strange, but she nodded and agreed. Next, she pushed Hua Xiao to see the wall where she had marked her height as a child. Hua Xiao teased playfully, "It seems you had a lot of prestige since childhood." Ruan Hanshin unconsciously scratched her head, defending herself by saying she always convinced people with reason. Just then, the punks who were taught a lesson last time suddenly rushed out, shouting for revenge. Hearing Hua Xiao worriedly say he would help, Ruan Hanshin refused immediately. Then she picked up a wooden stick from the ground. She scolded sternly, "Blind fools, didn't you see my husband is here?" The girl from the slums vowed solemnly in front of her newlywed husband that she always convinced people with reason. Then Ruan Hanshin picked up a wooden club from the corner, glaring at the punks who had a death wish. First, she gave the leader a fierce blow to the face. This beautiful side kick let the punks feel the lethality of her long legs. Immediately after, she used the club to teach them a lesson. Small fry shouldn't dream of challenging those above their level. Hua Xiao, watching the battle, was too shocked to speak. So, this is how his wife convinces people with reason. At the same time, the trembling butler kindly advised Hua Xiao, "In the future, you must obediently listen to Madam." Finally, it ended with Ruan Hanshin's effortless victory. Meanwhile, the punks lying on the ground were sent to the police station to reunite with their brothers. Afterward, Hua Xiao gently wiped his wife's hands, looking at his beautiful wife with interest. Whether it was investment, orchids, or today's impressive skills, this woman was like an interesting treasure. He was looking forward to what surprising discoveries he would make next time. At this moment, Ruan Hanshin suddenly received a call from Hua's sixth brother school teacher. In the Hua family hall, Ruan Hanshin carefully looked at Hua's sixth brother's painting in her hand. She saw many beautiful women surrounding an unrestrained man. The key was that the tone of the entire painting was dim, gloomy enough to make one feel depressed. She pursed her lips and didn't speak, just secretly used the corner of her eye to glance at Hua's sixth brother, who bowed his head in silence. Then she decided to go to the studio, first to see more of his paintings. Then the three of them arrived at the studio. Hua's sixth brother showed his eldest brother and sister-in-law, a painting he was quite satisfied with. At the first sight of the painting, both of them were instantly shocked with their mouths wide open. In the darkness, a little boy covered in scars was locked inside a giant birdcage by chains. At the same time, Hua's sixth brother introduced it with a hint of mockery at the corner of his lips. This is a beast spat on by the world until death. He hates this world full of hatred. But before Hua's sixth brother could finish, suddenly, Ruan Hanshin patted his shoulder with heartache, interrupting him. She also asked if she could add a few strokes to this painting. After getting consent, she picked up the brush and mixed the paint. Then she painted a blooming little red flower at the little beast's feet. The originally gloomy painting was instantly injected with a bit of light because of a flower. Hua's sixth brother stared at the painting, somewhat moved. After a moment of silence, he asked his sister-in-law in a low voice, "Do you think I'm a bit of a pervert?" Ruan Hanshin explained disapprovingly, "Everyone has their own personality and ideas. I actually think you have a talent for painting." Immediately after, she raised a bright smile and continued, "You can paint the different world in your eyes to your heart's content. But please allow me to add some color to the world in your eyes, okay?" At this moment, hearing this, Hua's sixth brother's heart skipped a beat. He knew very well that he was brought into this world by accident due to his father's one-night fling. He had been disliked by his biological mother since childhood and was strictly forbidden from painting. Even the school teachers thought he had psychological problems. He didn't expect to be acknowledged by his sister-in-law today. Hua Xiao aside also encouraged his brother to do whatever he wanted to do. He would hire professional teachers to teach him painting and support him. Hua's sixth brother, somewhat moved, hurriedly lowered his head to hide the moisture in the corners of his eyes, softly saying thank you to his brother and sister-in-law. At this moment, Hua Xiao looked up, gazing deeply at his beautiful wife. She did so much for this family. Was it just because of responsibility or something else? The petty Hua Xiao always felt very stifled after marriage. Clearly, she was the wife he married, yet she was always monopolized by his younger siblings. And suddenly an ill-intentioned childhood friend popped up to snatch his wife. Now, his beautiful wife knew only to revolve around orchids all day, completely ignoring him, her newlywed husband. Just then, Ruan Hanshin suddenly turned and asked, "Can we invite Xiaobai to eat at home?" After all, he helped find the ancient orchid book this time. It counts as a big favor. But hearing the name Xiaobai, Hua Xiao's face instantly darkened. He replied in an unhappy tone with the word mind, clearly meaning refusal. This inexplicable anger left Ruan Hanshin completely confused. She could only mutter to the orchid, "A CEO's heart is a needle in the sea, so hard to figure out." But the next second, she heard Hua Xiao, who hadn't gone far, suddenly speak, "Trouble, madam, to prepare a banquet to liven up the long silent Hua family." Ruan Hanshin was instantly stunned for a few seconds, thinking, did this man hear what I just said? A moment later, she raised a sweet smile and nodded slightly in agreement. Then Hua Xiao suddenly turned his head and glanced at his beautiful wife, teasing playfully, "It's not that I'm hard to figure out, but because madam is too popular. This makes your husband feel a sense of crisis." Soon, the banquet invitation was also delivered to the Chung family. The arrogant Chung threw the invitation on the ground rudely. Thinking about the last banquet, where Hua Fourth Miss made her lose face completely if she went this time, her anger grew even more intense. Her eyes instantly filled with greater rage, and she screamed frantically, "I won't go." However, at this moment, Chung Lin suddenly pulled her wrist fiercely, with a fierce tone carrying a few threats. He ordered, "As long as the Hua family hasn't fallen into my hands, we cannot fall out with the Hua family. This time, you not only have to go, but also apologize to them sincerely. You must obediently listen to me." Under her brother's warning, Chung didn't dare be willful. She could only nod like a chick pecking a grain, agreeing to the Hua family's demands. On the day of the banquet, Hua's sixth brother, who was helping entertain the guests, arrogantly refused to admit his nervousness, though his legs betrayed him. But Ruan Hanshin saw through his discomfort. She smiled casually, telling sixth brother not to be nervous and to just treat everyone like cabbages. At this moment, the usually high and mighty Chung was following beside Chung Lin like a quail. She reluctantly lowered her head to apologize to Ruan Hanshin. Ruan Hanshin, however, gave a cold sneer. She mocked with a hint of sarcasm. "Why are you apologizing to me? If you are truly sincere, Shouldn't you be apologizing to Qian? At the same time, his sixth brother, beside her, worried that his sister-in-law was being bullied. He quickly stepped forward and echoed, "Exactly. Don't think just because your name is Chung Yi that you actually have sincerity. It's laughable." At this, Chung Lin looked sideways and glared fiercely at his sister. Immediately, Chung Yi piled on a face full of hypocritical smiles. She explained that to express her heartfelt apology, she had specifically invited Ruan Hanxin's sister. Unexpectedly, Ruan Hanxin's brows furrowed instantly, barely able to suppress her disgust. It was well known that she had always loathed this green tea sister. Moreover, she was her husband's former fiancée. She really didn't know if Chung Yi was brainless or doing it on purpose, actually bringing this kind of person to the whole family banquet. However, the green tea sister squeezed out a seemingly friendly smile. She reached out, preparing to pinch Hua's sixth brother's cheek. Just as the green tea sister's hand was about to touch Hua's sixth brother suddenly turned sideways to dodge it. He naturally wouldn't like anyone his sister-in-law didn't like. So he glared at the woman with a cold, disgusted face. At this, the green tea sister acted as if she had suffered a massive grievance. Crying with eyes full of tears, "Sister, do you hate me this much? To the point of making your brother-in-law hate me too?" Ruan Hanxin, however, smiled coldly. Her eyeliner accentuated the enchanting corners of her eyes, but her indifferent gaze looked at the woman like she was a clown. Then she stepped forward and gently rubbed Hua's sixth brother's soft hair. "Look how well-behaved my brother is. So, it's very likely there's a problem with the person doing the touching." The green tea sister, eyes full of grievance, slowly lowered her head, successfully performing the pitiful look of a bullied woman. This fragile appearance immediately attracted a man bursting with a sense of justice to step forward. This man was none other than Ruan Hanxin's husband from her past life, a profligate son who was gold on the outside but rot on the inside, Zhong Xiaoyang. At the same time, Ruan Hanxin raised an eyebrow. Why was this scumbag here? The shallow-minded green tea sister blushed, swooning over him. This man is so handsome. Meanwhile, the usually calm and self-possessed Hua Xiao was flying into a rage at his own banquet. It was because his wife was actually being flirted with by an able-bodied man on his own turf. She was also being judged disdainfully by a group of snobs. Furious, his wife stormed off on the spot. The whole family banquet had just begun. Ruan Hanxin's green tea sister ran up to cause trouble. But after a short while, she set her sights on Ruan Hanxin's scumbag ex-husband from her past life, Zhong Xiaoyang. Unexpectedly, Zhong Xiaoyang suddenly strode up to Ruan Hanxin and actually grabbed her slender waist. The man's wandering hand slid down inch by inch. But having been reborn, she only wanted to stay away from the disgusting scumbag. So she abruptly pulled her body away. Just as she intended to leave, her hand was suddenly grabbed by the man again. Zhong Xiaoyang actually confessed with self-perceived charm, saying that ever since Mrs. Hu saved him last time, he had fallen in love with her at first sight. He even arrogantly concluded that the woman before him was just playing hard to get with him. However, Ruan Hanxin was cursing her pre-rebirth self in her heart. Why did she have nothing better to do than save a piece of dogskin plaster? Immediately after, she shook off the salted pig hand the man extended. Her face darkened instantly, her tone filled with obvious anger. Harassing a married woman in broad daylight? I think you peeled the skin off your left cheek to paste it on your right. Point one side thick-skinned, the other side shameless. Zhong Xiaoyang had never been insulted like this to his face by a woman in his life. Humiliated and angry, that he immediately put on a fierce expression. He even shamelessly mocked her husband with the crippled legs, calling him not a man. As he spoke, he tried to grab her soft hand again. But hearing these words, Ruan Hanxin's anger flared even hotter. Whether someone is a man isn't determined by whether their limbs are functional, but by their character. Besides, matters between us as a couple are not for you to judge. After speaking, she fiercely shook off the man's hand, her eyes sharp as she warned him to stay away from her. The commotion here quickly attracted everyone's discussion. At this moment, the green tea sister seized the opportunity to run up and continue making trouble. She deliberately raised her volume, pretending to offer well-meaning advice. "Sister, even if you despise your disabled husband, you can't do such scandalous things." But these words were unbearable for Hua's sixth brother, who had been standing nearby. He firmly defended her. Sister-in-law is absolutely not that kind of person, because he knew very well in his heart that his sister-in-law was sincerely good to them. Immediately, Quickly, the green tea sister turned to attack Hua's sixth brother, saying children don't understand one moment and the Hua family is unreasonable the next. Seeing her own little cub being bullied into a rage, the protective Ruan Hanshin couldn't care less about the etiquette of a banquet hostess. She simply let loose. She suddenly leaned forward and tightly gripped the green tea's chin. You are nothing but an illegitimate child born of a mistress. To put it plainly, you're the ironclad proof of Ruan Ziming cheating with Jiang Qiuyu. Shameful and disgraceful. Her eyes shot cold daggers at the green tea, warning her, don't provoke me or the whole family. Otherwise, next time I won't let you off so easily. As soon as the words fell, before the green tea could recover from a shock, that she swiftly picked up a glass full of wine from the table and splashed it on her. The green tea sister immediately turned into a drowned sparrow. Subsequently, she picked up another glass full of wine. Turning her head, she glared furiously at Zhong Xiaoyang, signaling that if he pestered her again, she would treat his head to a drink too. In the end, the scumbag and the green tea could only leave the whole banquet with their tails between their legs. As for the wine, she didn't splash. It all went into Ruan Hanshin's mouth. But only after downing the whole glass did she feel something was wrong. Why was this wine so spicy? At this time, the surrounding guests began discussing Ruan Hanshin's lowly background from the slums again. Just then, Hua Xiao pushed his wheelchair into the center of the banquet. Even though he sat in a wheelchair, a head shorter than normal people, his powerful aura intimidated everyone present. He sternly warned the crowd, I, Hua Chun, was only in a car accident. I didn't die. The Hua family hasn't fallen to the point where we let people discuss Mrs. Hua at will. Weigh your words before you speak. What should be said and what shouldn't. After speaking, he turned to look at his wife, his icy face instantly swapping for a smiling face seeking a reward, looking like he wanted his wife's praise. However, Ruan Hanshin didn't notice, because right now, the alcohol had gone to her head. Both her cheeks had turned flushed red, and even her body began to sway. Feeling unwell, she quickly lifted her gown and rushed toward the door. Hua Xiao, however, pressed his lips together tightly, lowering his head with a lonely look in his eyes. The girl from the slums who died miserably after being cheated on in her past life had returned dominantly after rebirth. She chose to marry the disabled Tycoon she missed in her last life. But unexpectedly, at the banquet today, Ruan Hanshin accidentally ran into her scumbag husband from her past life, Zhong Xiaoyang. This instantly triggered her painful memories of the marriage in her previous life. The wealthy mother-in-law who looked down on her, the endless daily insults. And her husband, Zhong Xiaoyang, chose to watch coldly from the sidelines. Later, the scumbag husband even used the lie of carrying on the family line to indulge in debauchery without restraint. Just like that she lived like a walking corpse every day. By contrast, her life in the Hua family now was as blissful as heaven. So, filled with gratitude, she took advantage of a break to run into a small room, secretly planning how to use the 50 million Hua Xiao gave her earlier to properly prank her nemesis, Cheng Lin. On the other side, the neglected Hua Xiao finally found a chance to compete for favor. He wanted to perform well in front of his wife, but didn't expect that his wife wouldn't even spare him a glance, rushing out of the banquet instead. Feeling downcast, yet worried, he pushed his wheelchair and chased after her. Only then did everyone realize that what Ruan Hanshin had just drunk was a spirit with extremely high alcohol content. At the same time, the lively Hua fourth brother began to worry neurotically whether his violent sister-in-law would throw big brother out, wheelchair and all. Or perhaps, after getting drunk, sister-in-law's violence would escalate, and she would beat up all the guests present. He was immediately besieged and looked upon with disdain by the three protective Hua siblings. However, when Hua Xiao finally found his wife in the lounge, he saw her scribbling something in a notebook. As he observed his wife closely, Ruan Hanshin suddenly looked up and saw who it was. She prepared to report the usage of the 50 million to Hua Xiao in advance. But before she could continue, Hua Xiao suddenly interrupted her, telling her to spend it however she liked. If it wasn't enough, he could give more. The overwhelming sense of trust surprised her. Then, she tentatively asked if he would be willing to accompany her back to the slums. Hua Xiao, staring at his wife's bright smile, nodded and agreed immediately. This made her even more confused. It seemed the man would agree to whatever she said. Equally puzzled was Hua Xiao. His wife seemed a bit different today. The next second, both of them spoke the word "you" in unison. Then, they looked at each other and smiled with perfect tacit understanding. It was Wan Hanxin, cheeks flushed, who spoke first. "I feel very lucky that I met you this time." Then Hua Xiao took his wife's hand. He suddenly leaned his face closer. "That's not right. The luckiest person is me. In the future, as long as I, Hua Chun, am here, you don't need to be afraid." The gloom buried at the bottom of Wan Hanxin's heart was instantly swept away. Overwhelmed with emotion, she suddenly jumped onto Hua Xiao's lap in the wheelchair, giggling foolishly. "My husband is so good." As the two got closer, Hua Xiao could clearly smell the strong scent of alcohol mixed with the faint fragrance on the woman. It seemed his wife had indeed been drinking today, and quite a lot. But Wan Hanxin gestured just a little bit with her hand. She retorted dazedly that she had really only drunk a little bit. But even if she drank too much, she would still recognize her handsome husband. Then her hands moved up inch by inch until they climbed onto the man's neck. She suddenly lowered her head and kissed the man's thin lips. What follows are scenes you all don't like to watch, so I'll reluctantly watch them for you. Sheep, 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 sheep. The drunken woman looked down at the handsome man in her arms, slowly asking, "Am I beautiful?" Before the man could react, she suddenly lowered her head and captured his lips, gnawing and biting chaotically. But just as Hua Xiao was preparing for the next step, he felt his shoulder suddenly sink. He looked down. He saw that Wan Hanxin was already fast asleep. At the critical moment, this woman actually teased him and then just checked out. He could only give a helpless, bitter smile. He placed a gentle goodnight kiss on his wife's forehead, murmuring in a low voice, "We have a long time ahead." Early the next morning, on the way back to the slums with Wan Hanxin driving, she was so embarrassed she just wanted to disappear on the spot. The ancients were right. Alcohol really misleads people. Hua Xiao, in a great mood, had a smile on his lips all morning. He suddenly teased his wife playfully, "Madam, that am I beautiful?" One sentence instantly made Wan Hanxin recall her hooligan behavior from last night. She could only stomp on the gas pedal in shame to escape this damn awkwardness. Soon, the two arrived at the slums. Walking in front, Wan Hanxin opened the door, not only to see the scumbag in the green tea surrounding her grandmother, saying something. Her face darkened in anger, and she shouted at the pair, "What the hell did you come here for?" Then Hua Xiao pushed his wheelchair in, following closely behind his wife. The man's handsome appearance and noble, extraordinary temperament instantly made the green tea stepsister unable to look away. She revealed a love-struck expression on the spot. However, Hua Xiao, who knew exactly what was going on, instantly became scheming. He asked his wife gently, "Who is this woman?" Hearing this, the green tea stepsister immediately jumped out, pretending to be hurt and sad. "Mr. Hua, how could you not know me?" She expected Hua Xiao's cold gaze, coupled with a ruthless rhetorical question, "Should I know you?" Following that, the green tea stepsister insinuated things about Wan Hanxin with double meanings. "Actually, I am your fiancé. It's just that sister she. But it doesn't matter. Now, please, Mr. Hua, for my sake, tolerate sister's bad temper more." But what she didn't know was that Hua Xiao hated hearing anyone criticize Wan Hanxin the most. So the protective Hua Xiao retorted unceremoniously on the spot, "My wife is a gentle, kind, good woman. I'm very fortunate that my wife is her." After speaking, he didn't forget to hold his wife's hand affectionately. This smooth operation left Wan Hanxin bewildered. After all, this was the first time she had been praised as gentle. At the same time, Grandma's eyes lit up with joy. The more she looked at her grandson-in-law, the more she liked him. Meanwhile, the scumbag thought to himself, "Gentle? Where is this woman gentle?" Only the green tea stepsister was left gritting her teeth in hatred. Wan Hanxin had actually snatched her man, and that 50 million. At this moment, the scumbag was about to step forward to curry favor, but was abruptly interrupted by Wan Hanxin's eviction order. The couple's eyes were identical, cold, and expressionless. This annoyed the scumbag, who had a young master's temper, but he was suddenly pulled back by the green tea. After politely saying goodbye, the green tea dragged the scumbag away with her. After the two eyesores had left, Grandma quickly pulled Ruan Hanshin aside and whispered a reminder. Those two lunatics said you scammed 50 million from the Hua family. Grandma believes you wouldn't do such a thing, but wealth shouldn't be revealed. You must be careful. To comfort Grandma, Ruan Hanshin explained with a grin that the money was actually pocket money given to her by her husband. Then she formally introduced her husband, Hua Chun, to Grandma. However, meeting the parents for the first time, Hua Xiao tried hard to pretend to be calm. He greeted Grandma respectfully and obediently. Then came a standard Chinese-style session of meeting the parents. Has Hanshin bullied you? When do you plan to have children? How many children are you preparing to have? Meanwhile, outside, the scumbag who had been dragged out fiercely shook off the green tea's hand. The next second, he heard the green tea propose an alliance between the two. Just like that, the two, each with their own sinister designs, formed a scumbag green tea alliance. Their goal was to make Ruan Hanshin leave the Hua family. The steady Hua Xiao actually had a day where he couldn't handle things, facing the enthusiastic barrage of questions from the wife's family. After coming out of Grandma's house, Ruan Hanshin suddenly felt playful and repeatedly teased Hua Xiao. However, Hua Xiao upheld his consistent principle, as long as his wife is happy. As soon as they returned to the Hua home, they were surprised to find an uninvited guest. Cheng Lin's mother, the Hua aunt, was sitting arrogantly in the living room, ordering the Hua family servants around. Immediately, Ruan Hanshin secretly signaled the butler. The butler, understanding instantly, quickly wheeled Hua Xiao into the study, not forgetting to remind Hua Xiao that the madam would convince people with reason. Meanwhile, Hua aunt immediately pulled Ruan Hanshin warmly to her side. She got straight to the point, introducing a project she had in hand, that with a return on investment so high it was scary. She said she was only offering it cheap because they were family. As long as she injected capital into that foreign trade company, she was guaranteed to earn back 500 million in a short time. At this, Ruan Hanshin, playing the pig to eat the tiger, vividly enacted the image of a rich but brainless straw bag. Her eyes lit up with interest, but she pretended to have some concerns, timidly proposing that she wanted to go to that foreign trade company to inspect it first. Everyone only knew Ruan Hanshin as a slum girl who only graduated from high school. Hua aunt was deeply convinced she was easy to fool, so she agreed readily. Finally, she didn't forget to instruct her not to tell her husband about these women's matters. Ruan Hanshin smiled and agreed. But the moment Hua aunt left, she turned around and ran to the study to mention this matter to Hua Xiao. Previously, she had specifically spread the news widely, saying she had 50 million in hand and was preparing to find a project to invest in, all to lure Cheng Lin's family into taking the bait. She didn't expect the aunt to come sniffing the scent of money so quickly. However, after listening, Hua Xiao pondered for a moment. Based on his years of experience, he determined that this foreign trade company was not simple. It seemed he had still underestimated Cheng Lin's wolfish ambition. But Ruan Hanshin raised a confident smile, not caring in the slightest, who told them to have nothing better to do than stretch their hands into the Hua family. However, Hua Xiao was still a bit worried, so he instructed that when she went tomorrow, she must take Assistant Han with her. Ruan Hanshin nodded in agreement. The next day, a group of people at the foreign trade company were frantically tidying up, trying to make the office look like a normally operating company. Among them, Cheng Lin's uncle, Cheng Yuan, arrogantly ordered that the top secret documents didn't need to be moved, just hidden well. Even if that high school graduate slum straw bag saw them, she wouldn't know what they were. Just then, Ruan Hanshin, dressed in formal wear, suddenly arrived at the door, followed by a rigid, serious professional. Assistantan. He immediately received enthusiastic hospitality from Uncle Cheng, but she waved her hand, irritably indicating that for any matters, they should just talk to her assistant. She would just walk around and look. Cheng Yuan immediately decided in his heart that this beautiful straw bag surely couldn't understand and just wanted to hide and slack off. However, Ruan Hanshin pretended to inspect the place, glancing around casually. She was secretly rejoicing in her heart. With their elementary school level, they were doomed sooner or later. But fortunately, this company had already been cut off from the Hua Corporation. If something really happened, it wouldn't concern the Hua family. Subsequently, she sat on the chair in the innermost office, enjoying the feeling of being a strong businesswoman. At this moment, she inadvertently looked up and glanced at the computer screen. Suddenly, she discovered that what was boldly displayed on the computer screen was exactly the fake account data of this company's illegal dealings. Thus, excited and with her eyes shining, she immediately performed a fierce operation on the keyboard. Finally, she secretly copied all the data in the computer to her own USB drive. A moment later, when Aunt Hua and Uncle Chung came in to find her, they saw her staring at the computer with a serious face. At this, Uncle Chung was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Could it be that she had seen the data? So he hurriedly stepped forward to take a look and was almost scared into getting cataracts. This woman was so serious, but she was actually playing Minesweeper. At the same time, Ruan Hanshin looked up to ask Assistant Han about the situation. But before the assistant could open his mouth to report, she impatiently interrupted him again. She heroically stated that she only wanted to know if she could invest, and how much to invest would be fine. But hearing this standard straw bag, nouveau riche speech, Aunt Hua beside her instantly blossomed with joy. She even solemnly vowed that it would absolutely make money. Ruan Hanshin also returned an innocent and brilliant smile, saying she believed Aunt wouldn't deceive her, successfully acting out a rich and easily deceived silly sweet girl. A slum girl, after rebirth, surprisingly voluntarily married the disabled husband she had missed in her past life. But unexpectedly, by mistake, she actually picked up a national treasure-level good husband. Her husband trusts her unconditionally. The 50 million pocket money is hers to spend as she pleases. Most importantly, at critical moments, her husband always stands in front to defend her. Today, Ruan Hanshin used the excuse of an investment inspection to go to Aunt Hua's investment company. Taking advantage of the moment, she secretly copied all the shady data from the computer. After returning home, she immediately and proudly showed her loot to Hua Xiao. And the wife-doting Hua Xiao even blew rainbow farts about his wife to her face. Just then, Hua's third brother suddenly rushed in clutching his phone, shouting in exasperation that someone was spreading rumors online. Sister-in-law, they saw a marketing account called Those Things About Wealthy Families had just released a post about wealthy family insider news. Inside, it exposed that Mrs. Hua was not only deeply involved in a romantic scandal with one woman and multiple men, but also had violent tendencies and had even been to the police station because of it. To prove the statements were not false, the post also included several pictures. There was Zhong Xiaoyang standing beside Ruan Hanshin, smiling gently, and her childhood friend Xiao by shielding her, a hero saving a beauty. Then it also released photos of her fighting in the street, and later a photo with the police and police car. In less than an hour, it directly rushed to the top of the hot search list. The comments below the post were full of cursing. At this time, Hua's third brother, as his sister-in-law's #1 fan, was already mad with anger. He even listed 100 methods of counterattack. At this moment, Hua Xiao was calm, disliking his younger brother for being too impetuous. It was just that his hand gripping the phone tightened bit by bit, while Ruan Hanshin, who was being attacked, appeared very calm instead. She stepped forward with a smile, touched Hua's third brother's bristling hair, and comforted the child not to worry, she was fine. Just then, Ruan father suddenly barged in furiously, cursing loudly. Ruan Hanshin had been taught badly by her grandmother since childhood, actually hooking up everywhere, and even bullying her kind sister. As a biological father, pointing at his daughter and roaring loudly. He should have strangled her to death when she was little, saving the embarrassment. At this moment, Ruan Hanshin's face instantly sank, and she retorted sharply. That lunatic has no right to judge Grandma. As soon as her voice fell, she quickly grabbed the water cup on the table and ruthlessly splashed it onto the other party's face. Her eyes were full of freezing coldness, but her heart, which had long since become cold and hard, still couldn't help but ache faintly. Seeing Ruan father wanting to continue his madness, the green tea stepsister behind him reminded in a low voice, "Mr. Hua is still here." At this, Ruan father subconsciously assumed he would be implicated and blamed, so he hurriedly expressed his stance, saying he had taught his daughter poorly. Ruan Hanshin, this unfilial daughter, was left to the Hua family's disposal. However, the wife-doting maniac Hua Xiao opened his mouth to mock that the other party indeed taught his daughter poorly. But fortunately, because the Ruan family hadn't taught his wife for a single day, he could have such a good wife. He suddenly paused, and his tone warned even more strictly I absolutely will not allow anyone to say half a word wrong about my wife, including you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Seeing the situation was different for what she imagined, the green tea stepsister hurriedly jumped out, looking at the man with deep affection, still wanting to use the content in the hot search post to provoke their relationship as a couple. She had just opened her mouth, but was sternly interrupted by Hua Xiao. Don't appear again in the future. Close the door and see the guests out. A third brother, who had long been unable to hold back, heard this and immediately rushed forward, pushing both of them out and closing the door. After closing the door, he even spat in disgust. What are mad dogs barking for? However, Ruan Han-shin, who was fierce just a moment ago, suddenly burst into laughter. The feeling of being protected was really good. She felt her faintly aching heart instantly being wrapped tightly by warmth. But the two brothers were instantly a bit confused. The next second, Ruan Han-shin suddenly leaned in front of her husband, eyes curved, refusing her husband's kind offer to help handle it, stating she could handle it well herself. Now she would go check Hua third brother's homework first. Hua third brother, who was suddenly mentioned, immediately turned his head and slipped back to his room. Soon, an account named Ruan Hanshin Studio posted online, stating they would pursue it to the end, attaching a lawyer's letter at the bottom. The gossip-watching netizens still held some suspicion about the validity of the lawyer's letter. There were keyboard warriors demanding solid evidence if she had the ability, until the official account of a certain police station formally posted a thank you note to Ruan Hanshin, explaining that Ruan Hanshin was assisting in the arrest of evil forces at the time. At this time, the direction of public opinion completely turned into wild praise. Ruan Han-shin acted bravely for a just cause, to be named and praised by the officials. This wealthy wife was simply too hardcore. At the same time, Ruan Han-shin Studios account threw out a clarification post. Actually, Ruan Han-shin had always been very cold to Zhong Xiaoyang, who tried to strike up a conversation. And on the day Xiao Bai was photographed saving the beauty, Mr. Hua was also present. All the rumors were shattered one by one. However, Xiao thoughtfully watched his wife's perfect counterattack at all times. While happy for his wife, a slight loneliness faintly rose in his heart. The hardcore wealthy wife who was just praised by the officials was actually kidnapped by someone in broad daylight. However, her omnipotent disabled husband, who was there every day, went to inspect the overseas branch yesterday. In reality, Hua Xiao secretly went to have leg surgery. He wanted to pull himself together so he could better protect his wife. Just last night, after the small uncle named Chengming got drunk, he triumphantly bragged to Chengming about how he had fooled the stupid Ruan Han-shin before. However, upon hearing this, Chengming's face instantly changed greatly. So he hurriedly opened the company computer and checked carefully. Sure enough, the top secret folder immediately showed it had been copied once. He instantly flew into a rage, losing his temper at the small uncle. Ruan Han-shin, this woman is not simple. You guys even actively invited her to the company. What is the difference between this and directly handing the evidence to her? At this moment, the small uncle was scolded bloody and could only tremble in fear at a loss. It was the insidious Chengming who immediately thought of a plan to remove future trouble forever. The next day, Ruan Han-shin notified her subordinate to organize the evidence in the USB drive of the Chung family using entertainment venues for money laundering and hand it to the police. She had just hung up the phone and was preparing to wander around alone, but was blocked by a few thugs who popped out from who knows where. It seemed the comers were not kind, but that was fine too. She could take the opportunity to fish out the real boss behind the scenes. So Ruan Han-shin pretended to be completely defenseless and walked past the thugs. Just at the moment they brushed past each other, suddenly a thug quickly covered her mouth with a towel soaked in potion. Soon, under the effect of the potion, she gradually lost consciousness and fainted dead away. When she woke up, she found she had been tied up in a private box at a nightclub. With her hands tied, she swayed and sat up, glancing at the surrounding environment. The next second, her long leg fiercely kicked the glass coffee table hard. The sound of glass falling and shattering instantly rang out inside the box. The huge noise immediately attracted the attention of the thugs guarding outside. Ruan Han-shin coldly sized up the man who entered, determining this person was not the boss. Thus, she unusually calmly told them to call their boss over. During the wait, Suddenly, a woman named Haidang came in. Haidang was dressed scantily, with heavy makeup on her face, looking like a hostess here. Hearing the boss order a new girl to be tied up, she suggested letting her try to persuade her with a few words. So Haidang walked up to Ruan Hanshin, advising her earnestly, "Sister, don't be afraid. As long as you are obedient, our boss won't mistreat you." However, she was immediately mocked back by Ruan Hanshin. How to be obedient? Obedient like you? Haidang instantly got a bit angry. She leaned closer and warned sternly, "This is fate. You have to learn to accept fate. Otherwise, you'll inevitably suffer." But Ruan Hanshin scoffed disdainfully, her eyes determined as she replied in a deep voice, "But I just won't accept fate. My fate can only be decided by myself." As soon as the words fell, Haidang was instantly stunned. She had said the same words back then. The next second, while continuing to persuade, she slowly reached her hand behind Ruan Hanshin's back. The tied hands quietly used the eyebrow razor blade hidden in the hand to cut the binding rope. She coquettishly acted spoiled to the man guarding, saying she couldn't persuade her and would go out to work now. At the same time, Ruan Hanshin surprisingly sensed that the rope on her hands had been cut open, so she hurriedly called out to the woman, asking for her name. She heard the woman who was about to leave turn around and slowly reply with the two words, "Haidang." After a long time, their boss finally walked in laughing, his hand occasionally moving prayer beads. But Ruan Hanshin saw at a glance that this person was cruel and ruthless, definitely not a kind person. So she asked straight to the point, "What is your purpose?" However, the boss still maintained a smiling face, saying today was just inviting her back to catch up. Catch up because Ruan Hanshin had previously sent his subordinates to the police station and now took an important thing from a good friend. But Ruan Hanshin scanned the group without a trace and sneered coldly. The wife-doting maniac Hua Xiao unexpectedly flew into a thunderous rage at his beautiful wife for the first time. For the first time, he roared his wife's full name, Ruan Hanshin. Originally, he wanted to hide it from everyone and secretly go for leg surgery. When he could stand up again, it would be his turn to protect his wife. But unexpectedly, his disobedient wife was actually kidnapped by an underworld boss and fell into danger. However, what he didn't know was that actually Ruan Hanshin deliberately risked herself. The purpose was to quickly fish out the black hand behind Changming. Sure enough, the kidnapped Ruan Hanshin finally met their boss, a man holding prayer beads, appearing kind but actually ruthless. Just then, Ruan Hanshin suddenly gave a disdainful sneer and fiercely broke open the ropes binding her hands. She quickly grabbed a wine bottle and ruthlessly smashed it on a thug's head. The opponent fainted dead away on the spot, before Boss Sun and the others could react from their surprise. She immediately rushed forward and delivered another ruthless kick to the crotch, taking the opportunity to snatch the baseball bat from the opponent's hand. At the same time, a pig-slaughtering scream rang out in the room. Ruan Hanshin, with a weapon in hand, was even more like a tiger with added wings. She rushed up and struck the back of a man's head heavily. At this time, her third brother suddenly rushed in, wanting to help his sister-in-law. But he was ruthlessly punched by the opponent, and right on the face. Ruan Hanshin, who was always protective of her own, seeing the cub she protected being bullied, became even more furious. Taking advantage of his unpreparedness, she quietly approached and smashed down ruthlessly on the opponent, directly knocking the person down. She waved the baseball bat in her hand and scolded sternly, "Who gave you the bare heart and leopard guts to dare touch my family's little cub?" Immediately, she checked the injury on her third brother's face with heartache, telling him to bear it, and they would go to the hospital in a while. While her third brother instantly turned into a little fanboy on the spot, exclaiming that sister-in-law was too cool. He even raised a smile, comforting his sister-in-law in return that he was fine, telling her to go chase the person who ran away first. This made Ruan Hanshin feel very gratified in her heart. She didn't expect this little cub to become more and more sensible, so she grabbed her weapon and chased out. Finally, in a small alley, she blocked Boss Sun, who was fleeing in panic. In the dim light, only Ruan Hanshin's murderous eyes were visible, standing there like a female god of war. Suddenly, Boss Sun smiled wickedly and took out a pink earring. Ruan Hanshin's heart was instantly startled. This earring was worn by Haidang, who had just helped her. Could it be that Haidang? However, at this moment, she was only concerned with worrying about Haidang and didn't notice the danger quietly approaching from behind her. Suddenly, her arm was ruthlessly stabbed by a dagger, and the baseball bat fell to the ground along with it. She could only grit her teeth and lean against the wall to support herself. Seeing the arrogant boss son preparing to take her life while she was injured, she quickly dodged, grabbed the baseball bat on the ground, and flew to smash down on the man's head. The force was so great that the pot-bellied boss son fainted dead away on the spot. In the end, she herself also swayed uncontrollably due to the injury. In a trance, she seemed to see her husband who was on a business trip overseas. Was it because she missed him too much? The female boss of the slums finally realized that she had already fallen in love with her disabled husband. Thus, brave as she was, she immediately pounced and ruthlessly kissed her husband's thin lips. Just now, while Ruan Hanshin was answering the police officer's questions, she couldn't help but look at her side in confusion. She saw Hua Xiao beside the hospital bed, drawing out a gleaming fruit knife, quietly peeling an apple for his wife. At this time, Hua Xiao pursed his lips tightly, his mood very unpleasant. Clearly before he left, he had exhorted his wife 1,000 times to stay away from danger. But as soon as he came back, he saw his wife injured and falling to the ground. His heart ached to death. The most damnable one was still that boss son who hurt his wife. Soon the police finished understanding the situation and were planning to leave. Ruan Hanshin hurriedly spoke up, asking them to help check Haitong's whereabouts. At this moment, without raising her head, she took the apple that had been peeled into a strange shape, not noticing at all that her husband was gazing at her with resentful eyes. Only because at this time, Ruan Hanshin wholeheartedly hoped that Haitang, who had helped her, could be safe. But unexpectedly, after checking, the police informed her that Haitang had been stabbed to death. Ruan Hanshin was instantly stunned. Her hand loosened, and the apple immediately fell to the ground. Her heart suddenly tightened. Impossible. How could Haitang die just like that? Could it be that boss son discovered Haitang had helped her? She was instantly enveloped by a sorrowful sense of powerlessness throughout her body. Her heart felt as if a part had been hollowed out by someone. Tears fell uncontrollably like broken beads. As soon as his wife cried, the wife-doting Hua Xiao instantly panicked. What to do when the wife cries? What should he say or do? But he reacted very quickly, gently wiping the tears from his wife's face, and comforted softly that although they didn't save Haitang, they could establish a charity fund specifically to help girls in trouble. Ruan Hanshin was instantly a bit stunned, feeling her heart, which was empty just a moment ago, instantly being filled full by the man. Immediately after, she suddenly leaned close to the wheelchair and sincerely said thank you to her husband. Before Hua Xiao could react, she fiercely pounced forward and ruthlessly kissed her husband's thin lips. This sudden kiss made Hua Xiao surprised for a few seconds. Then he couldn't help but kiss back. The couple were both immersed in this sweet moment. At this time, Hua's third brother suddenly pushed the door open and entered, with an exaggerated bow tied on his bandaged head. The couple who were caught red-handed separated in a flash like lightning. At the same time, Hua's third brother was so scared his whole body wanted to fly away, not knowing if he would be scolded to death by big brother first, or beaten to death by sister-in-law first. A few days later, Hua Xiao specially went to pick up his discharged wife to go home. Hearing his wife propose to build a school so that more dropout children could receive education again like her, he nodded in agreement without hesitation. At this time, the jumpy Hua third brother asked if he could open a nightclub to dance cha-cha. As soon as his voice fell, he immediately suffered critical damage from the couple. Ruan Hanshin ordered him to go do problems. Hua Xiao told him to go dream. Just then, Hua's fourth sister rushed out to welcome sister-in-law's discharge, and also showed sister-in-law the small bud that the orchid had just grown. Hearing this, Ruan Hanshin left Hua Xiao behind and ran quickly to check, leaving only Hua Xiao sitting in the wheelchair, sulking. Why do younger siblings always snatch his wife from him? But as long as his wife is happy, it's fine. And he gazed deeply at his wife, who was smiling brilliantly, the corners of his mouth rising slightly. If his wife heard the good news that he could stand up, would she be even happier? Would she be proactive like today? The man with disabled legs secretly had leg surgery, keeping it from his beautiful wife. Just thinking of being able to be like in idol dramas Princess carrying his beautiful wife and spinning in circles. But his own wife is really too popular, always being monopolized by others. Hua Xiao, who had been holding it in for a day, just didn't have a single chance to share this good news with his wife. He was so anxious that he wanted to swallow that extremely rare orchid raw. Just now, Ruan Hanxin, whom Hua Xiao picked up from the hospital, had just returned home. He was just wanting to tell his wife the news that his legs were healed immediately. Suddenly, Hua Four's sister ran out excitedly to welcome sister-in-law, and incidentally told sister-in-law that the orchid had grown a small bud today. Hearing the good news, Ruan Hanxin ran forward to check immediately, leaving Hua Xiao sitting in the wheelchair, looking depressed. Why do the younger siblings always hog his wife? At this moment, a subordinate stepped forward to report the results of Hua Xiao's investigation. It turned out to be the vicious Cheng Ming, who contacted Ba Sun to get rid of Ruan Hanxin. As soon as the voice fell, Hua Xiao's face suddenly darkened, his whole body emitting an aura of the calm before a storm. He immediately ordered his subordinate to notify Grandpa Gu that the orchid had been saved and incidentally invite Grandpa Gu's whole family to attend the orchid banquet hosted by the Hua family. The next second, he instantly changed to a gentle smile, gazing deeply at his wife, whose eyes were curved in laughter. He fantasized in his mind that if his wife heard the news that his legs were healed, she would be very happy. Maybe she would even let him princess carry her and spin around like in an idol drama. It wasn't until Ruan Hanxin walked closer that he pulled his thoughts back. He then pretended to be calm and asked his wife to prepare for the orchid banquet. He also specifically instructed his subordinates not to invite Cheng Ming's family. Ruan Hanxin, on the side, was a bit curious about her husband's purpose in doing this. Hua Xiao, who trusted his wife extremely, explained patiently. Cheng Ming intended to use the upcoming shareholders' meeting to completely oust him, and he wanted to use the orchid banquet to cooperate with the Gu family and catch him off guard. Ruan Hanxin understood instantly and immediately expressed with a smile that she would fully support him. Just as Hua Xiao was about to share the good news about his legs, before he could speak, he suddenly heard Hua Fourth's sister shouting loudly, exclaiming that the orchid was in trouble. So Ruan Hanxin ran away in a flash, leaving only the helpless Hua Xiao sighing somewhat indignantly. After confirming the orchid was fine, Ruan Hanxin ran nonstop to the kitchen, emphasizing again that they must focus on preparing the sweet dishes that Grandpa Gu liked. Hua Xiao, who had followed all the way, couldn't get a word in at all and could only continue to wait. Subsequently, Ruan Hanxin busily assigned tasks to the little cubs. Fourth sister was responsible for sending invitations according to the list. Fifth sister went to prepare a few piano pieces she was good at. Sixth brother helped go to the florist to pick up the pre-ordered flowers. As for the crazy third brother at the end, just staying at home would be enough. This immediately met with Hua third brother's unconvinced protest. This was simply naked discrimination. At the same time, the ignored Hua Xiao seized the opportunity. Wife, my legs actually. But before he could finish, Ruan Hanxin thought her husband's legs were uncomfortable. So she interrupted, saying that after she finished with the orchid banquet, she would take him to see Dr. Gu. The completely ignored Hua Xiao felt even more depressed. He was so angry he almost wanted to deep fry and eat that extremely rare orchid fruit. Forget it. A while later, Hua's sixth brother carefully carried the fresh flowers sister-in-law had pre-ordered into the house. He was very happy in his heart to be able to help his sister-in-law. Suddenly, his pupils quaked. He slowly lowered his head and asked what the matter was in a volume that couldn't be lower. He saw Hua's sixth brother's biological mother, Yi Tong Tong, a middle-aged woman with a mean face, suddenly blocking Hua's sixth brother's path. She pretended to care and mentioned she wanted to stay at the Hua house for a few days to attend the orchid banquet. This way, she could incidentally help her son celebrate his birthday. Hearing this, Hua's sixth brother sighed in disappointment. Sure enough, Mom still remembered his birthday wrong. But Yi Tong Tong chuckled indifferently, then shamelessly demanded her son take her to the orchid banquet where there were many rich people. After being decisively rejected by her son, she instantly turned angry from embarrassment. She immediately slapped the fresh flowers in her son's hands onto the ground in a rage, having felt sister-in-law's sincere care and warmth. Now Hua's sixth brother only felt disgust for his mother's affected fake concern, so he squatted down and picked up the scattered flowers one by one. He stated coldly again that he would not take his mother to the orchid banquet. After speaking, he turned and left lonely, ignoring his mother roaring behind him. If you don't agree, don't recognize me as your mother. Just like that, his sixth brother returned to the Hua house, holding the damaged flowers in low spirits. Ruan Hanshin immediately sensed something was wrong and urgently asked what happened. However, his sixth brother shook his head, only apologizing that he would help sister-in-law buy new ones tomorrow. After speaking, he walked heavily towards his room. It was the idle Hua third brother who chimed in to explain that sixth brother must have just met his biological mother. The stubborn sixth brother had always hoped to receive motherly love for so many years, but his unreliable mother was bent on getting money and old men. At this moment, Ruan Hanshin keenly perceived that someone was sneaking into the Hua house. The usually calm and composed, disabled big shot was actually disregarding others' dissuasion, doing devilish rehab training behind his beautiful wife's back, just so he could see his wife's excited reaction when she found out he recovered sooner. At the same time, his beautiful wife was once again displaying her unique, formidable lady persona to protect the Hua family. Just now, Ruan Hanshin suddenly keenly perceived a figure sneaking into the Hua family's flower room. So she quietly picked up the shovel and water ingot on the ground and smashed them fiercely at the figure. While the other party was dazed from a hit, she ran forward quickly and pinned the person firmly to the ground. It wasn't until Hui's third brother stepped forward and shouted in surprise that the person was Hui's sixth brother's biological mother that she let go. However, her lips were pursed tightly. Soon, the huge noise in the flower room attracted Hui's sixth brother, who had just returned to his room. As soon as he arrived at the scene, he saw his mother cursing and accusing sister-in-law of hitting so hard she intended to kill. However, Yi Tong Tong said she came to see her son, but her eyes wandered back and forth among the pots of flowers behind her son. Ruan Hanshin, sensing something wrong, suddenly questioned coldly her true purpose for sneaking into the flower room. But Yi Tong Tong just desperately craned her neck to look at the flower pots behind. But Ruan Hanshin blocked her desperately and wouldn't let her see. Seeing this, the two brothers also joined the team of blocking her view. It was Hui's sixth brother who couldn't bear it anymore and directly drove his mother to leave quickly, saying he would find a way to give her money again. However, upon hearing this, Yi Tong Tong instantly smashed the flower pot at hand in anger. Enraged, Hui's sixth brother fiercely pushed his mother to the ground. She couldn't believe the son who used to obey her every command dared to lay a hand on her. So the even more annoyed Yi Tong Tong directed her spearhead at Ruan Hanshin, insisting she was a fox spirit slut from the slums who led her son astray. Or maybe the crippled husband couldn't satisfy her, so she turned to seduce her able-bodied brother-in-law. The cursing got uglier, daring to spout all kinds of filth. At this time, Ruan Hanshin was just about to open her mouth to make her shut her stinking mouth. Unexpectedly, the usually well-behaved Hui's sixth brother seemed to go crazy at this moment, pouncing forward and strangling his mother's neck tightly. Ruan Hanshin was instantly startled and quickly rushed forward to pull them apart. Sister-in-law's timely intervention made Hui's sixth brother sober up instantly. But what he just couldn't understand was why his mother spoke of his sister-in-law, who cared for him so unbearably. Did he really not deserve sincere concern? The pain of seeking motherly love, but not getting it for many years, finally couldn't be suppressed at this moment. He plunged in his sister-in-law's warm embrace and cried loudly. Why doesn't my mother love me? Why do I have such a mother? Why? Each heart-wrenching cry smashed onto Ruan Hanshin's heart. She hugged Hui's sixth brother with heartache, letting him vent wantonly. When Hui's sixth brother's emotions calmed down a bit, she gently wiped away the tears on his face and comforted softly, "Don't be sad. Our sixth brother is very good. You have sister-in-law, and everyone cares about you and loves you." However, this warm scene was very glaring in Yi Tong Tong's eyes, so she suddenly stood up quickly, wanting to rush forward and teach this dog who used to crawl in front of her begging for a little motherly love a lesson. But the protective Ruan Hanshin swept a cold glance. She lunged forward and fiercely gave the other party a resounding slap. The force was so great that the person fell heavily to the ground again. The furious Wan Hanshin stepped directly on the other party's shoulder with a domineering kick, warning coldly, "Try saying another word." But Yi Tong Tong, who wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin, continued to mock from her own grave that she was mentally perverted and only married a cripple because she had a fetish for disabilities. Hearing the word cripple, Wan Hanshin felt a burst of anger rushing up, her face instantly becoming darker. "Who allowed you to speak of my husband like that?" At the same time, the foot on the shoulder unconsciously applied more force. Yi Tong Tong immediately screamed in pain. Just then, the tall and straight Hua Xiao, like a god descending from the sky, suddenly pushed the door open and entered. "Who dares to clamor, my wife?" At this moment, Wan Hanshin could no longer care about that crazy woman and immediately excitedly threw herself directly into her husband's arms. And Hua Xiao also dotingly stroked his wife's soft hair. The next second, however, he shot a cold look at the ground and ordered in a deep voice to pack the person up and drop her into an African indigenous tribe. Yi Tong Tong was instantly scared witless and quickly crawled to Hua Xiao, explaining humbly that she really just came to see her son. Seeing Hua Xiao unmoved, she immediately pulled her son to play the family card. However, Hua's sixth brother at this time was already disheartened with such a selfish mother. So he fiercely threw off his mother's hand and sternly refused to pay for his mother's mistakes. At this time, Yi Tong Tong's face became ferocious with anger. However, out of the corner of her eye, she accidentally swept over an orchid placed beside her. Her pupils quaked instantly. This was the orchid Chengming paid her to smash. Evil grew from her guts. She quickly lunged forward and tore the orchid to pieces. The female boss from the slums, in order to protect the Hua family, once again perfectly displayed her unique, formidable lady persona. And Hua Xiao, in order to protect her, could finally stand up from the wheelchair. Facing the strong alliance of the mixed doubles team, the selfish Yi Tong Tong, Hua's sixth brother's biological mother, suddenly lunged forward and tore the orchid, which Chengming bribed her to destroy, into pieces. Just as she was immersed in the thrill of madness, suddenly Wan Hanshin burst out laughing, mocking her for having no knowledge. The pitiful Hua's sixth brother stepped forward to explain that the one just destroyed by stupidity was just a common orchid. It wasn't Grandpa Gu's extremely rare orchid at all. He also didn't understand where his mother, who didn't even know what the orchid looked like, got the confidence to rush into the Hua house to trouble sister-in-law. And now he had completely given up on this stupid and poisonous mother, no longer humbly begging for her to bestow a little bit of motherly love. After seeing the subordinates take the person away, the smiling Wan Hanshin leaned close to her tall and straight husband with an ill-intentioned look, asking sinisterly why someone kept such a big thing as treating his legs a secret as a family member. Hua Xiao, who was usually self-righteous, instantly didn't dare to make a sound due to a guilty conscience, cold sweat breaking out all over his body. It was the butler who quickly pushed the wheelchair over, letting the young master sit down and obediently listen to the madam. Just then, a subordinate came up to report. Chengming actually called a shareholders' meeting in advance, and the time happened to be on the day of the orchid banquet. Hearing this, Hua Xiao lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then instructed with gentle eyes that he would go to the shareholders' meeting, while the Hua family's side could only be entrusted to his wife. Wan Hanshi nodded, not forgetting to remind the man to explain clearly to her after he came back. On the day of the orchid banquet, Hua Aunt Chengming's mother arrived at the Hua house early in the morning with 2 directors, and her purpose for coming uninvited today was to ruin the orchid banquet and incidentally fool Wan Hanshin into investing in a movie. Who would have thought that as soon as she walked into the Hua family flower room, she would be surprised to see Grandpa Gu, who originally didn't need to arrive so early. Moreover, Grandpa Gu was looking at the beloved orchid that had come back to life, his little mustache trembling with happiness. And the angry Hua aunt suddenly mocked Wan Hanshin, saying that before someone dug up all the ornamental plants in the community's green belt to grow vegetables. She felt that growing flowers was actually about the same as growing grass. As soon as the voice fell, the angry Grandpa Gu knocked the ground with his cane, making a thumping sound. The smiling expression just now immediately became serious, scolding that there are still people now who can't distinguish between growing flowers and growing vegetables. At the same time, the jumpy third brother gloated, mocking Aunt for having no knowledge and advising her to speak less when going out in the future. Aunt was so angry her face was almost twisted, but she still hadn't forgotten today's purpose and quickly pulled Ruan Hanshin to the living room to talk about the investment. Ruan Hanshin looked sideways at the two directors behind her. One had a fat head and big ears with a fawning face. The other was refined with a somewhat deep temperament. She then instructed the idle third brother to take good care of Grandpa Gu and led everyone to sit down in the living room. Just as they sat down, the fat-headed director, Wang, asked straight to the point if she was interested in investing in movies. He also promised confidently that investing in him would guarantee a profit. Seeing Ruan Hanshin look curiously at the man beside him, the proud director Wang pretended to be familiar and patted the man's shoulder, introducing him as his old classmate Feng Chun, who had been sticking to art films that cost a lot and didn't make money. Unlike himself, who was a big director heavily promoted by Xinxiu Entertainment. However, Director Feng refuted with a face of disagreement. They're relying on traffic to make bad movies. But the other party wasn't angry at all, instead mocking him even more proudly. Then you could try and see if anyone will invest a dime in you. At this time, Ruan Hanshin, who had been silent and cold-eyed, suddenly took over the conversation decisively. I'll invest in you. The double-legged, disabled business big shot actually stood up, now facing the Chengming mother and son who were bent on snatching the family property. The strong alliance of the strong woman and strong man started to tear them apart directly. Ruan Hanshin dealt with the hypocritical Hua Aunt at home, while Hua Xiao went to the Hua Corporation shareholders meeting to overthrow Chengming. In the Hua family living room, Hua Aunt, who looked down on Ruan Hanshin from the bottom of her heart, specially brought two directors, saying it was to discuss investment, but actually to blow up director Wang of Xinxiu Entertainment as having good box office and selling well. But what she didn't say was that director Wang's new movie was actually not favored by many people, so he couldn't get investors. However, Ruan Hanshin, who had been reborn, was extremely disgusted as soon as she heard the name of Xinxiu Entertainment, because she clearly remembered that her childhood friend, who died miserably in her past life, was coerced by this entertainment company. Later, it was exposed that the company used despicable means to manipulate young boys and girls chasing dreams. She was instead somewhat curious about director Feng, who was brought along as a foil. The silent director Feng, hearing that investment was hopeful, quickly and excitedly handed over the script he carried with him. However, director Wang started to speak sarcastically, insinuating that Ruan Hanshin was young, inexperienced, and didn't understand return on investment. At the same time, Hua Aunt instructed Ruan Hanshin in the tone of an elder that investing in director Wang wouldn't be a loss. Unexpectedly, what they got in return was Ruan Hanshin questioning the two back with a cold face. Are you teaching me how to do things? Then she lowered her head and roughly browsed director Feng's script. She hadn't heard of this movie in her previous life, guessing it was aborted due to lack of investment. However, the plot was overall quite good, obviously not a dog-blooded cliched idol drama. Therefore, she waved her hand and decided on the spot to invest $60 million in this literary film. Director Feng was overjoyed and thanked her repeatedly, saying he would work hard to film it well. At the same time, director Wang was dying of jealousy, and Hua Aunt rolled her eyes in anger. The next second, she suddenly laughed proudly, mocking that after today, the whole corporation would belong to her son Chengming. Keep this money safe, because it might become Ruan Hanshin's alimony after being swept out of the house. However, her pride didn't last 3 seconds before she was informed by Ruan Hanshin that Hua Xiao's legs were healed. This news was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue, striking her dumbfounded on the spot. At the Hua Corporation shareholders meeting, a shareholder who had been bribed by Chengming in advance was shamelessly advocating that Chengming's business ability was above Hua Xiao's, and the Hua Corporation must replace the president with Chengming. As soon as the voice fell, it was immediately met with strong opposition from other shareholders. After all, with the pearl of business wizard Hua Cheng in front, how could they look at the block of wood Chengming? At this time, The slightly unhappy Cheng Ming reminded everyone that Hua Xiao was not only crippled in legs, but also in spirit. Could they still count on such a useless person to lead the Hua Corporation to develop? One stone stirred up 1,000 waves. The snobbish shareholders defected one after another and supported Cheng Ming. Only one loyal shareholder who followed Hua Xiao jumped up in anxiety, cursing them as ungrateful villains. Seeing the situation was set, Cheng Ming quickly stood up excitedly, intending to announce his inauguration as the new president of the Hua Corporation. Suddenly, short applause came from outside the door. The shareholders looked towards the sound in surprise to see who dared to interrupt such an important high-level meeting. They never expected it to be Hua Xiao, who hadn't been seen for a long time. They saw he had already left the wheelchair, standing straight, his whole person radiant, showing no sign of decadence. The business big shot who dominated outside was actually secretly studying coaxing techniques at home, like a servant in front of his wife, trying hard to please her. He even sacrificed his handsome face to use the beauty trap, just because the disabled Hua Xiao actually hid the leg surgery from everyone. Even though he can stand now, his beautiful wife Ruan Hanxin is still quite dissatisfied with this. But the urgent priority now is to deal with the wolfishly ambitious Cheng Ming and his mother, the Hua family. Hua aunt attempted to trick the inexperienced Ruan Hanxin into paying for the notorious director Wan. Who would have thought? Ruan Hanxin chose the accompanying director Feng to invest in instead. Angry, Hua aunt jumped up from the sofa, about to lose her temper. However, Ruan Hanxin suddenly shouted towards the door, "Hua third brother, see the guests out." As soon as the words fell, Hua third brother, who obeyed his sister-in-law's every command, immediately rushed in wielding a feather duster. He drove everyone out fiercely. Director Feng, who remained, also realized that Mrs. Hua just wanted to anger certain people. Now that the goal was achieved, it wouldn't be impossible to drop the investment matter. But Ruan Hanxin gave a confident faint smile and insisted on investing to the end. The reason was simple. She just read the script and thought it was quite good. A simple affirmation actually made the burly director Feng tear up with excitement. He secretly vowed in his heart that he must film it well so as not to let down this hard-won affirmation. This left Hua's fourth sister, who had returned, looking confused. Could it be that this man was just beaten by her sister-in-law? Meanwhile, Hua Xiao, who had stood up, appeared at the Hua Corporation shareholders meeting. It instantly caused a commotion. A group of opportunistic shareholders turned their heads to support Hua Xiao again, and Cheng Ming, who was triumphant just a moment ago, immediately deflated like a ball and slumped back into his chair. He had plotted for so many years. Seeing success right before his eyes, he absolutely could not fall short at the last moment. So, the unwilling Cheng Ming proposed a challenge of fair competition to Hua Xiao. But Hua Xiao sneered disdainfully and nodded in agreement. In the evening, after the orchid banquet ended, Ruan Hanxin asked her younger siblings if they had prepared gifts for the children at the orphanage. At this moment, the lively Hua third brother suddenly jumped out, pointing at the sixth brother and teasing that if he taught the children to draw, he would lead them astray. But Hua's sixth brother hated it most when people questioned his painting. Even his biological brother was no exception. Instantly, the siblings fought playfully and bursts of laughter rang out. Ruan Hanxin was also unconsciously infected and laughed out loud. At this time, Hua Xiao, who had just returned home, was captivated by his beautiful wife and couldn't move his eyes away. The simple-minded Hua third brother suddenly started gossiping with his sister-in-law about the news of the eldest brother standing up. The news said that the eldest brother stood up out of anger because of Cheng Ming. Hua Xiao, standing aside, quickly coughed twice, signaling his third brother to stop talking. After the younger siblings all ran upstairs, Ruan Hanxin welcomed him with a face full of smiles, teasing Hua Xiao gloomily about how he walked back instead of coming back in a wheelchair. The guilty Hua Xiao immediately scratched his face unconsciously. Hiding his surgery from his family before was indeed a bit inappropriate. Immediately, he thought of the 100 ways to coax a wife he had temporarily crammed. He quickly started to show off what he learned. Very obsequiously, like a maidservant, he surrounded his beautiful wife, massaging her shoulders and pounding her back. He was only short of bringing foot washing water to serve her. Ruan Hanxin was instantly amused by Hua Xiao's behavior. she couldn't help but praise herself for picking up a good husband. Hua Xiao gazed affectionately at his beautiful wife and retorted with a happy smile. It is my luck to have picked up a peerless good wife. So, beautiful wife, don't be angry anymore, okay? After speaking, he lowered his head and fiercely kissed Ruan Hanxin's lips. The husband with disabled legs suddenly stood up, but the beautiful wife was very angry. It turned out that for such an important thing as curing his legs, that the husband actually didn't tell his wife. This made the calm and composed Hua Xiao instantly feel guilty. In order to please his wife, he was like an obsequious maidservant, massaging his wife's shoulders and pounding her legs. Suddenly, he pulled his beautiful wife into his arms, leaned close to the woman's ear, and whispered, "My queen. Am I beautiful?" This sentence made a shiver run down Ruan Hanxin's spine instantly. Suddenly, Hua Xiao lowered his head fiercely and kissed his wife's soft lips. At the same time, his hand wandered on his wife's back. Ruan Hanxin's eyes became blurry from the teasing. An ambiguous atmosphere gradually spread in the air. Just as the two were about to continue, the third brother suddenly darted in. Seeing his eldest brother and sister-in-law separate rapidly, with faces blushing incredibly, he immediately realized he had ruined a good thing. It seemed his death was not far away. At the dining table, Hua Xiao obsequiously kept putting food in his wife's bowl. Even when the wife's bowl was almost overflowing, he continued. The siblings at the same table were eating at 3.0x speed today. They couldn't help it. If they were a bit slower, Big Brother would give all the food to sister-in-law. They wouldn't even have crumbs left to eat. While eating, Hua Xiao took the initiative to mention that the combination of tradition and modernity in the West District was very unique. He was preparing to develop the West District. He intended to use this to topple Chengming. Ruan Hanxin carefully recalled that in her previous life, the Gu family gained huge profits through the development of the East District. So she hinted that the East District was more modern and investing in the East District had smaller risks. However, Hua Xiao disagreed. His wife came from the slums of the West District. He hoped his wife could see the place where she grew up getting better and better. At that moment, Ruan Hanxin's heart trembled fiercely. She didn't expect that this man did all this for her. She excitedly held Hua Xiao's hand. Her beautiful eyes gazed deeply at the man in front of her who doted on her to the extreme. The next day, at the orphanage in the West District, Ruan Hanxin took her younger siblings to the orphanage early in the morning to do volunteer work. She also wrote a check for a considerable amount to buy some thicker clothes for the children. And the usually unruly Hua fourth sister had now become a spoon-wielding cook, cooking a large pot of fragrant dumplings for a group of cute children. At this warm and joyful scene, suddenly, a group of fierce-looking hooligans barged in. The leader with red hair threatened viciously that they must pay the protection fee today. After speaking, he ruthlessly threw the staff member who came forward to stop him onto the ground. Seeing this, Ruan Hanxin quickly stepped forward to help the person up. She shouted at the hooligans in a deep voice, "What exactly do you want to do?" Seeing that the opponent was just a woman, the hooligans clamored, "Newcomer, hurry up and kneel down and call me Big Brother, and I won't hold it against you." Who would have thought the face-slapping would come so fast? Ruan Hanxin ushered the frightened children inside, while quietly picking up a frying pan. She was going to let these hooligans figure out clearly right now who exactly needed to kneel. The next second, she rushed forward rapidly and ruthlessly slammed a big pan bottom onto the red hair. Seeing this, the subordinate immediately pounced forward. Just as he was about to remind the boss who this woman was, he was sharply interrupted by the red hair, whose face had swollen into a pig's head. "I don't care who she is. Call for backup." The subordinate was anxious. Regardless of everything, he continued to remind him that this woman was the hardcore. Mrs. Hua who sent boss son to prison a while ago. The red hair was instantly scared almost to the point of wetting his pants. And Ruan Hanxin shook the frying pan in her hand with great satisfaction. "From now on, this orphanage is under my protection. Let me see who dares to come looking for a beating." The business tycoon who said he didn't need a wife was actually frantically clinging to his wife, asking for cuddles. He even became shy for the first time just because he was casually praised by his wife. It was all because he was already deeply fascinated by his beautiful wife. Beautiful and kind-hearted, warm and gentle. In short, his wife was good everywhere. And now, his gentle wife, Ruan Hanshin, that was picking up a frying pan and smashing it desperately at the hooligans who came to cause trouble at the orphanage. Soon, the other party recognized the woman with the style of a bandit leader in front of them. That was the hardcore wealthy wife who sent boss son to the police station a while ago. The hooligans were so scared that they immediately fled in disgrace and disappeared. Seeing this, the children happily circled around Ruan Hanshin, praising the sister for being too cool. At this time, the staff member who had just been bullied suddenly walked up to Ruan Hanshin and asked if she grew up in the West District. Ruan Hanshin nodded generously and admitted it. She also turned around, preparing to serve a bowl of freshly cooked dumplings for him to taste. Seeing the other party smile and decline, he handed over a business card. The business card was printed with Professor of Urban Studies, Zhao Jinping. Only then did Ruan Hanshin know that the other party was not a staff member of the orphanage, but the famous Professor Zhao. It was rumored that Professor Zhao had poured a lot of effort into the development of the West District. Ruan Hanshin suddenly remembered her husband from her previous life, Zhong Xiaoyang, who had repeatedly criticized Professor Zhao Jinping at home, scolding him for messing around blindly. Several times, he almost shook the authorities' idea of city development. However, under the game of capital, Professor Zhao still failed. Later, Gu family's second young master, Gu Zhao, quickly became the person in power of the Gu family because of the Central District Development Project. Who would have thought that as soon as his second young master Gu took office, he would frantically suppress the Hua Corporation? Looking at it this way, she must seize this opportunity. So Ruan Hanshin and Professor Zhao chatted about some topics regarding district development. Suddenly, Professor Zhao lowered his head and sighed. It would be better if we could record the changes in the city. For some reason, this sentence lingered in Ruan Hanshin's mind and could not disperse for a long time, until she returned to the Hua house. She looked at the group photo taken at the entrance of the orphanage during the day. Suddenly, a bold idea flashed through her mind. If she filmed a documentary about the city and applied it to the publicity of the West District development. This way, everyone's view of the West District would no longer be poverty, but profound cultural heritage. The more she thought about it, the more she felt this idea was excellent. So she couldn't help but immediately share her thoughts with Hua Xiao. She also suggested letting the director she invested in film this documentary. This could also generate a wave of heat for the movie. The shrewd Hua Xiao thought it was good as soon as he heard it. Holding a press conference to promote it then would get twice the result with half the effort. In less than 2 minutes, Hua Xiao verbally formulated 99 of a complete business plan. Ruan Hanshin couldn't help but praise her husband to his face. As expected of a business legend, thought his brain was just very useful. But unexpectedly, the usually serious Hua Xiao actually showed a rare, shy expression. Meanwhile, outside the room, Hua's third brother was dragging a 0.3-meter long orphanage donation list, pacing back and forth in the corridor outside the room 99 times, muttering in his heart that it was so annoying. Should he go in? If he went in, would he see some scene he shouldn't see? At that time, would the eldest brother scold him to death first? Or would the sister-in-law beat him to death first? After the slum girl was reborn, she actually married her future brother-in-law with disabled legs. Who would have thought that the disabled husband, despised by her stepsister, would actually pamper the girl like a treasure in his palm? He even spared no expense to develop the West District where the girl lived since childhood to please her. As a return, Ruan Hanshin decided to invest in filming a documentary about the West District to support her husband's investment project. Early this morning, she asked director Feng, whom she had discussed cooperation with before, to come out. She proposed that she wanted director Feng to film a documentary about the humanities, scenery, and ancient architecture of the West District. At that time, it would be promoted jointly with a new movie, and a press conference would be held. As soon as director Feng heard it wasn't about withdrawing investment, he happily nodded and agreed. Immediately afterwards, Ruan Hanshin also proposed that she wanted to put the audition quota for the movie's protagonist at the press conference for auction. Director Feng, with a bad temper, immediately refused righteously upon hearing this. Capital interfering with such an important link as the selection of the movie protagonist. Even if Ruan Hanshin added another 100 million investment on the spot, Director Feng still insisted on his point of view. Once capital participated in the production of movie content, the quality quality of the movie would definitely be greatly discounted. After speaking, he said goodbye very unfriendliness and prepared to get up and leave. However, at this time, Won Han-shin did not get angry, but smiled instead. She explained slowly that she would not interfere with the final casting of the protagonist, just auctioning the qualification to audition. And all the proceeds would be used for the development of the West District and movie production. Halfway through, she suddenly paused, lowered her head, and continued leisurely. What the West District currently has is just old houses and winding alleys. And those children can't even eat their fill, let alone receive a good education. Every word smashed into the softest part of the man's heart. Director Feng's thoughts spread accordingly. If a part of the protagonist scenes were cut, the impact wouldn't actually be very big. It was just a movie after all, if doing so could help those people in the West District. After thinking quietly for a moment, Director Feng decided to agree to Won Han-shin's proposal, and he promised that he would do his best to promote the characteristics of the West District. Meanwhile, Grandpa Gu's head was buzzing with pain as he listened to the juniors quarreling. Gu family's third miss took a fancy to the profound historical heritage of the West District and proposed to develop the West District. This way, it could keep up with the pace of urban development. But Gu family's second young master, Gu Zhao, disagreed. His consistent principle was to make a profit. After all, development was not poverty alleviation. The more developed East District was the ideal development. After speaking, he disdainfully mocked that women just had long hair and short knowledge. Women with short hair don't have much better knowledge either. Gu's third sister was instantly unconvinced. These were the results of her comprehensive consideration. Besides, they were discussing official business now. Why attack gender? The two argued inextricably. At this time, Grandpa Gu slammed the teacup heavily on the table and decided to let the two compete fairly. Whoever could achieve better results in this development project will be the next successor of the Gu Corporation. Gu's second young master immediately became anxious. How can a girl lead the Gu Corporation to a more brilliant future? But Gu's third sister suddenly sneered and questioned him if he was doubting Grandpa's decision. And Gu's second young master was instantly grinding his teeth in anger, swearing to make this sister suffer. The man who said he didn't need a wife actually evolved into a wife-flaunting bootlicker overnight. No matter where he went, he praised how good and great his wife was. You who don't have a wife won't understand. People who were forced to eat a mouthful of dog food dared to be angry, but dared not speak out. Who let his gentle and lovely wife be not soft at all when reasoning. However, Won Han-shin was indeed a very capable, virtuous internal helper. Yesterday, she just found the collaborating director to discuss filming the West District documentary. Today, the news was already known to everyone on the streets. It even topped the hot search list. Mrs. was spent $160 million to hire an unknown director to film a West District that is different from memory. However, Director Feng withstood the pressure brought by all the negative news and soon released an antique-style documentary. As soon as it was released, it received rave reviews. Netizens commented one after another that they couldn't believe this was really the West District. Antique Beauty really want to form a group to wear hanfu and check in there. And the news of auctioning the movie protagonist audition opportunity was released simultaneously. In just 2 minutes, there were more than 140,000 likes and more than 7,000 comments. At the same time, Won Han-shin at home stared nervously at the comment data on her phone and breathed a sigh of relief secretly. It seemed the plan was considered successful so far. Immediately, she clicked on her childhood friend Shun Nai's account to check. Inside were just records of the girl's daily life. It seemed that Shun Nai had not entered the entertainment industry yet, but this was also good. Living a simple and ordinary life was happier than anything else. However, what Won Han-shin didn't know was that Shun Nai also saw the news of her investing in a movie online. This news instantly hooked out the thought of wanting to act buried in her heart. And what Won Han-shin didn't know even more was that every night at the door of her room, a figure was always clinging there, silently waiting for the queen's summons and favor. Time passed quickly, and it was the day of the press conference. Won Han-shin was busy doing the final confirmation work. Suddenly, Hua Xiao walked over holding a few boxes. She was a bit curious about what was inside these boxes. She heard Hua Xiao reply faintly, "This is a little token of my regard." items for my wife to auction at the press conference. She couldn't help but pick up the boxes and open them one by one to check. She was surprised to find that one of the boxes actually contained the husband's favorite and also most expensive watch usually. However, Hua Xiao expressed nonchalantly that to support his wife, the items must definitely be the best. It had to be said that this man brought her too much emotion. Apart from saying thank you properly, she didn't know how to express it. Thank you, Mr. Hua. In a short while, the press conference was about to begin. Wan Hanxin walked towards the front stage with large strides. On stage, she stood beside her husband. Suddenly, the silent Hua Xiao glanced inadvertently at his wife's low-cut design on the chest. His eyes flashed slightly. Suddenly, he took off his suit jacket in public. He draped it gently over his wife. He claimed beautifully that the air-conditioning wind was cool. Dr. Gu off stage saw through the man's clumsy excuse at a glance. It was just that the wife dressed a little sexy and the husband was petty. President Wu also took the opportunity to tease ill-intentionally. If Mrs. Hu were my wife, she could wear whatever she wants. But Hua Xiao was not affected at all. Instead, he stared straight at the person beside him. Beautiful wife. My wife is beautiful, gentle, and capable. But in my heart, she will always need to be taken care of and loved. Of course, you two men without wives won't be able to experience my feelings. The two single men were blown up on the spot. Being forced to stuff a mouthful of dog food wasn't enough. They were actually personally attacked. However, Gu's second young master on the side smiled coldly. He mocked in his heart. I guarantee that in a while, everyone won't be able to smile, even if they want to. Soon, the press conference officially began. Director Feng was introducing the ancient charm of the West District with deep emotion on stage. He had only spoken a few sentences when suddenly, a piercing scream from the audience interrupted him. Gu's second young master's lover, Nana, walked onto the stage arrogantly. A lump of mud that couldn't even make it to the wall was actually talking about ancient charm. She claimed the West District was just a garbage dump where garbage people live. Immediately after, Gu's second young master loudly accused Mrs. Hua of investing in the documentary with hidden, malicious intent. He claimed it was solely for the malicious development of the West District to obtain high profits. At first, Ruan Hanxin, mindful of the press conference, tried hard to suppress the anger in her chest. She explained calmly that developing the West District could greatly reduce the wealth gap in the city and prevent many people from being forced down helpless paths. Who would have thought Nana would keep badgering her, cursing with a sense of superiority that no matter how well packaged the West District was, it was still a garbage dump inhabited by garbage people. Garbage people, garbage dump. Wan Hanxin's face instantly turned cold. The blood in her whole body boiled. Anger made it impossible for her to think calmly anymore, and she ruthlessly slapped the pink-haired monster across the face. A woman who convinces people with reason never relies on men when arguing. She doesn't rely on her mouth. She goes up and slaps the other party until they are convinced. And the man, with just one look, could kill anyone who tried to provoke his wife. The formidable couple joined forces at the press conference, like the Black and White Reapers. They had just scattered a wave of dog food that nearly choked everyone on the spot. Now, facing the pink-haired monster who jumped out to cause trouble, the short-tempered Ruan Hanxin didn't care whose woman she was. She rushed forward and slapped her ruthlessly again, teaching her how to speak. Immediately after, she grabbed the pink hair tightly and spoke with domineering aura. I don't care whose running dog you are. I just don't like the look of you today. So what if I hit you? The dog owner, Gu's second young master, immediately couldn't sit still. He sternly questioned, Mrs. Hua, hitting my person in public is not giving me, Gu, any face. Hearing this, Ruan Hanxin suddenly let go of the hand holding the pink hair. She glanced at the stage with eyes full of disdain and sneered back. You are currently just the second young master of the Gu family, while I am the wife of the person in power of the Hua family. You actually dare to talk about face in front of me? I like to ask, why should I give you face? Gu's second young master instantly felt he lost face and angrily questioned who gave her the courage to speak to him like that. As soon as his voice fell, the gloomy-faced Hua Xiao patted him heavily from behind and replied in a deep voice on behalf of his wife, I gave it to her. I will also take time to ask Master Gu who taught the second young master such an arrogant tone. Upon hearing grandfather, Gu's second young master immediately withered. Now was the critical moment in the fight for the Gu family's leadership. He absolutely could not leave a bad impression on his grandfather. Wait until he became the person in charge. He would definitely make these people pay. Thus, he could only indignantly take the pink-haired monster and stride away. After the farce, the press conference continued. After Ruan Hanshin calmed her emotions, she tried her best to appeal to everyone that as long as they slowed down, they would surely discover the beauty of the West District and change their prejudices against it. Director Fong took over the conversation and took the opportunity to introduce his upcoming movie, which would use the West District as a filming location. Today, the opportunity to audition for the protagonist in the movie would be auctioned. The audience was instantly in an uproar. Some thought it was too absurd, but more shrewd businessmen thought this was a great opportunity to connect with the Hua family. Ruan Hanshin briefly introduced the auction for the audition opportunity, stating that half of all proceeds would be donated to the movie's production and half would be donated to the West District. After speaking, she walked straight toward her husband's seat off stage. Hearing Hua Xiao gently say, "Madam, you've worked hard," her heart couldn't help but feel traces of sweetness. If what she did could help the development of the West District and help her husband, then everything she did was worth it. While there was love and affection off stage, the audition auction was proceeding like a raging fire on stage. The audition opportunity started at a bid of only 10,000. People present raised their paddles one after another, increasing the price by 100,000 or 300,000. Among them, President Wu, who loved to join in the fun, shouted a high price of 1 million. However, he was immediately suppressed by the Gu family's eldest son, Dr. Gu, with 1.5 million. President Wu immediately raised it to 2 million unconvinced, seriously suspecting that this doctor was also interested in Mrs. Hua. Dr. Gu curled his lips and shouted 2.5 million, not forgetting to mock him for his filthy thoughts. This made the wife-doting maniac beside him extremely jealous, and he immediately raised his paddle to join the battle, 5.2 million. 3 men competed against each other, refusing to admit defeat. 6 million, 8 million, 10 million. Everyone was speechless. On stage, Director Fong was so shocked he froze holding his little hammer. Why were 3 grown men who had nothing to do with acting causing a scene? Suddenly, the voice of the Gu family's third miss, Gu Jiao, cut in. 18 million. Dr. Gu was very surprised. Why was his third sister here? President Wu complained in his heart with soaring resentment. Who dares to snatch from me? However, this woman looks quite flavorful. The next second, he heard Dr. Gu's warning. My sister is not suitable for a frivolous playboy like you. At the same time, Ruan Hanshin recalled her past life. Old Master Gu had also wanted Gu Jiao, who possessed business talent, to inherit the Gu family. If she could cooperate with her, Gu's second young master might not become the head of the Gu family like in the previous life. While they were distracted, the hammer fell at 18 million. Gu Jiao successfully won the movie protagonist audition opportunity at the auction. The formidable, wealthy wife finally admitted with her own mouth that she had fallen in love with her contractual husband. Her husband was rich and handsome. Most importantly, he always spoiled her without limits, like spoiling a daughter, even though her husband often got jealous like a child fighting for favor. And she also used practical actions to prove her love to her husband. Just at the auction that ended moments ago, the Gu family's third miss, Gu Jiao, ultimately won the movie protagonist audition opportunity with a sky-high price of 18 million. However, she didn't really want to act and become an artist. Instead, she wanted to use this opportunity to negotiate cooperation with Ruan Hanshin to develop the West District together. Ruan Hanshin looked at the proposal Gu Jiao handed over and sighed from the bottom of her heart. What a precise investment plan. Gu Jiao's excellent business mind was not something a treacherous villain like Gu Zhao could compare with. But in the previous life, Gu Jiao was set up by Gu Zhao. After her investment failed, she was violated, leading her to commit suicide under the blow of overwhelming indecent videos. However, in this life, Ruan Hanshin chose to marry the disabled tycoon she missed in her previous life. Unseen by others, Hua Xiao whose legs were disabled, regained his fighting spirit for life, changing the tragic ending of dying from depression in the previous life. Wan Hanxin also hoped to help the young girl escape her tragic fate from the previous life, so she happily agreed to the cooperation and tactfully reminded her not to care too much about worldly opinions. One sentence instantly captured Gu Jio's heart. Suddenly, she affectionately held her hand and called out, "Sister-in-law, my stubborn big brother is very good. Miss Wan, why don't you consider becoming my sister-in-law?" This happened to be heard by Hua Xiao standing outside the door, and his face instantly turned iron blue. If looks could kill, he would have already torn Dr. Gu behind him into pieces and thrown him into the Pacific Ocean. Sensing the intense killing intent, Dr. Gu waved his hands repeatedly, clarifying that he absolutely had no improper thoughts about Wan Hanxin. To save his own life, he rushed forward quickly to stop his sister from continuing to talk nonsense. At the same time, Hua Xiao flashed to his wife's side, suppressing great anger to declare sovereignty. "Miss Gu, my wife and I are a legally married couple with a marriage certificate." The atmosphere instantly fell into awkwardness. It was Dr. Gu who dragged his sister away from the dangerous scene quickly. But Gu Jio, not fearing death, shouted one last time, "See you tomorrow, sister-in-law." After everyone had left, Wan Hanxin couldn't help but laugh out loud. The dignified President Hua was actually competing with a little girl. Suddenly, she gently stroked the man's sensitive neck and confessed deeply, "The person I love is only my husband, Hua Chun." Hua Xiao gazed at his beautiful wife, and uncontrollably, their secret code word slipped out, "Queen. Am I beautiful?" Before his wife could react, he suddenly lowered his head and kissed her soft lips. A sweet scent quickly spread from between their lips to their whole bodies. Soon, the man's hot breath teased Wan Hanxin into confusion and passion. Suddenly, a burst of urgent knocking on the door instantly broke the ambiguous atmosphere in the room. The formidable, wealthy wife's green tea stepsister relied entirely on imitating her sister to successfully hook up with rich young masters again. Previously, the green tea sister failed to seduce her brother-in-law, Hua Xiao, and then got involved with Wan Hanxin's husband from her previous life, Zhong Xiao. Only then did she discover that Zhong Xiao was actually an accomplished good-for-nothing. Counting on him to live a life where she could spend millions like Wan Hanxin was hopeless. So, she shifted her target to the Gu family's second young master. Today, she specially chose a dress in Wan Hanxin style and walked into the room with her head held high, just like her sister. Sure enough, Gu's second young master became interested as soon as he saw her. This woman was a living, sweet version of Wan Hanxin. Previously at the press conference, the man had been publicly rebuked by Wan Hanxin and lost all face. But thinking about it, that woman was truly thrilling. Since he couldn't get the genuine article right now, this high-quality imitation in front of him wasn't unacceptable. So Gu's second young master waved his hand, took out a supplementary card for her to swipe freely, and decided to invest in director Wang's movie to promote her work. The greedy green tea sister naturally wouldn't refuse. Before leaving, she didn't forget to throw a rebellious look, imitating about 70 to 80% of the original. She kept up the act until she walked outside the villa, only then daring to breathe a sigh of relief. Being stared at by Gu Zhao's eyes just now nearly scared her to death. She was just planning to get in the car and leave when she was stopped by Director Wang, who caught up, saying Gu's second young master sent some meeting gifts. For a moment, she didn't have time to pretend to be Wan Hanxin again. Sweating cold sweat, she hurriedly accepted the bags with an obsequious smile and fled with a guilty conscience. Meanwhile, the real owner, Wan Hanxin, was having a sweet time with her husband when she was suddenly interrupted by Director Feng. Although Gu Third Miss won the audition opportunity for the movie protagonist at the press conference, she didn't really want to act. The choice of the protagonist was ultimately left to the director. Actually, among the materials received, the director had indeed taken a fancy to a girl with great spiritual energy. However, when Wan Hanxin looked closely, it turned out to be her childhood friend, Shenai. But in the previous life, Shenai jumped off a building and died precisely because she stepped into the big dive vat of the entertainment industry. In this life, she thought her childhood friend had already given up her dream of being an actress. She didn't expect her to be so persistent. Since her friend had a dream, and she, having been reborn, had the ability, could she protect her friend? After thinking back and forth for a moment, she ultimately couldn't bear to stop her friend from chasing her dream. So she told the director to arrange the audition as normal. The next day in the studio, as soon as Shun Nai saw Wan Han-shin, whom she hadn't seen for a long time, she excitedly flew over to hug her, chattering about everyone's current situation. Among them, Xiaobai was now working everywhere to earn money, preparing to go back to school. Wan Han-shin felt relieved hearing this. It seemed the spike club she used before wasn't waved in vain. Now, she was most worried about the girl in front of her, so her expression suddenly became serious. The road of the entertainment industry is not easy to walk. It is much more complicated than you imagine. I am worried you will get hurt. Being an actress has always been my dream. Before, I didn't have the chance. Now that I have the chance, I absolutely won't give up. Besides, don't I have you, this formidable wealthy wife now? Seeing she couldn't be persuaded, Wan Han-shin sighed helplessly. I really lost to you. Perform well. If you don't act well, the director will replace you all the same. San Nai note that? The passion for chasing dreams made the girl shine all over. The audition process went very smoothly, even though the director chose the most difficult emotional outburst scene in the movie. Shin Nai, who hadn't received professional training, still successfully performed it. In the movie, the protagonist discovers that her biological father sold her to a terrible old man. The unwillingness and collapse. Whether it was her sense of the camera or her interpretation of the character, she didn't lose out to professional actors at all. It seems Shinai really had a talent for acting. Once the protagonist was finalized, the director immediately and excitedly posted an official announcement of the protagonist selection, attaching Shun Nai's audition photos. The comments section instantly exploded. Netizens were all infected by the female lead's super strong expressive power. At the same time, Wan Han-shin suddenly received a call from Gu Third Miss. She said Gu's second young master had signed the Green Tea Sister as the lead for a new play. They had just released promotional photos, and now the internet was buzzing. It seemed they were determined to stage a rival show. Wan Han-shin softly said thanks, then heard the girl on the other end of the phone shouting excitedly, "Sister-in-law! Sister-in-law!" She speechlessly hung up the phone. Why was the rigid and serious businesswoman privately as jumpy as the third cub in her family? Originally the formidable wealthy wife who was cheated on and died tragically. After rebirth, she actually became the group favorite. A best friend she just met aggressively gave her a studio. And when her wife-doting maniac husband made a move, he directly bought the whole building to give to his beautiful wife. Just now, Wan Han-shin was arranging a screen test for her childhood friend in the studio when she suddenly received a tip-off from Gu's third sister. She said Gu's second young master actually signed her green tea stepsister as the female lead for a new play. This was clearly to sing a rival tune against her. Coincidentally at this moment, the Green Tea Sister rushed in arrogantly with director Wong and others. Wan Han-shin swept a cold glance and immediately keenly perceived that someone behind the crowd was secretly recording. Director Wong arrogantly ordered them to get lost immediately. Director Lee retorted, unconvinced that they had already booked this venue for today. President Gu has already bought it at 3 times the price this morning. From now on, this place is mine. It was simply bullying too much. The man was so angry that fire rose 30 feet high, wishing he could rush up and throw a few punches. But doing so would fall into the opponent's trap. So Wan Han-shin quickly stepped forward to stop him. Instead, she stepped forward with a stride that recognized no kin. Whether it was arguing or a gang fight, she was afraid of neither. The ones who should be afraid were the opponents. After all, there isn't a single earthling now who doesn't know the martial arts value of the formidable wealthy wife. But some people just didn't believe in evil and came looking for abuse. Sister, don't get too excited. We have the lease contract for this venue in our hands. Wan Han-shin looked disdainfully at the stepsister, who was different from before, seeing at a glance that the other party was imitating her. One must know that previously, to hook rich second generations, the stepsister liked to pretend to be weak and pitiful. However, today, Wan Han-shin mocked with a faint smile, "Sister, change your style? Are you imitating me?" After speaking, she tightly pinched the other's chin and continued in a deep voice, "Fake is fake. Some things are not something a counterfeit, like you can imitate." The Green Tea Sister was hit where it hurt and instantly turned angry from embarrassment. "You stole my marriage first, my future. You are a robber who stole my life." After roaring, She wanted to hit someone, but was easily pushed back by Ruan Hanshin. As a result, the green tea sister fell to the ground, trembling with anger. Ruan Hanshin was speechless to the extreme about this kind of person. Clearly, it was the other party's mother, a mistress, who ascended to the position, destroyed her family, and seized her family's property. Subsequently, the green tea sister didn't want to marry a disabled man with no future, so she forced Ruan Hanshin to marry in her place. Now she actually made false countercharges and inverted black and white. Suddenly, Ruan Hanshin thrust her face close, her eyes shooting out a few degrees of murderous intent. "Sister, tell me, who exactly is the robber?" The green tea sister was about to explode with rage when she suddenly caught a glimpse of Director Lee holding up a phone to record. She roared, flustered and exasperated, "Ruan Hanshin, are you trying to frame me?" It seemed this woman wasn't just bad, her brain didn't work well either. Just then, Gu Third Miss rushed over with the purchase contract for the studio. Now this studio belongs to Ruan Hanshin. However, the green tea sister was unwilling to give up and threatened to rent other studios in this building. But unexpectedly, this path was abruptly blocked by someone, because apart from the studio, Hua Xiao had already bought the entire building to serve Mrs. Hua, spoiling his wife so lavishly it was inhumane. But Ruan Hanshin felt that the feeling of being spoiled was really good. The formidable, wealthy wife was actually sent to another man's bed by her green tea stepsister. She was set up in front of millions of netizens. Previously, the green tea sister was driven out of the studio in embarrassment by Ruan Hanshin, simply because the whole building was bought by Hua Xiao to give to his beautiful wife. She instantly felt unwilling and immediately thought of Gu's second young master, who was charmed by her before. Immediately, she called the man and said resentfully that Ruan Hanshin deliberately bought the whole building. She clearly doesn't put you, Gu's second young master, in her eyes. She wanted to use this to provoke the man into increasing his investment. However, the cunning Gu's second young master didn't fall for the trap, and instead asked what substantial benefits he would get. The green tea sister was stunned for a moment. Then a vicious scheme instantly surfaced in her mind. That was to send the proud and arrogant Ruan Hanshin to Gu's second young master's bed. Unexpectedly, this vicious scheme hit right in the perverted man's sweet spot. Therefore, Gu's second young master readily agreed to triple the investment after the deed was done. The green tea sister secretly rejoiced. "Ruan Hanshin, your good days are over." The perverted man was excited. "Ruan Hanshin, I want to watch the way you look when conquered by me." Meanwhile, on the other side, Ruan Hanshin, having returned home, was sweetly enjoying dinner with her husband, Hua Xiao. "Thank you, Mr. Hua, for the unexpected surprise today." Hua Xiao dotingly stroked his wife's soft hair. "Don't always thank me. This is what a husband should do." Before he finished speaking, he was abruptly interrupted by a message notification on his wife's phone. It was actually the green tea sister publicly inviting her to participate in the film festival held by News Show Entertainment. It felt like something was wrong somewhere. Hua Xiao, who always paid attention to his wife, immediately noticed his wife's expression was off. Afraid his wife would feel aggrieved, he domineeringly advised her not to go if she didn't want to. However, Ruan Hanshin smiled indifferently. "Of course I'm going. I'll promote our movie while I'm at it. Since it's a full live stream, I can let my sister witness the evils of society." Immediately, he revealed a devilish smirk. "What if Hua Xiao gets jealous? Madam is so lovely like this." Soon, the day of the film festival arrived. The four little ones at home guarded the TV early, wanting to be the first to see their sister-in-law's grand entrance. Sure enough, as soon as Hua Xiao appeared on camera with Ruan Hanshin, the livestream popularity instantly soared to over 1 million. The comment section instantly bustled with activity. Netizens praised them as a match made in heaven. Others were surprised that Hua Xiao's legs were actually healed. After a while, Hua Xiao was called away by Dr. Gu, leaving Ruan Hanshin alone. She scanned the venue and accidentally spotted the green tea sister staying alone with Gu Zhao, looking like they were in a honeypot. Amidst this, the green tea sister also noticed Ruan Hanshin's gaze. She quickly stepped forward, pretending to be affectionate and grabbing her sister's arm. Those who didn't know better would think the sisters were very close. However, Ruan Hanshin disdained such posturing. She abruptly shook off the hand. But in front of the live stream, the green tea sister continued to act out the drama of deep sisterly love, even picking up a glass of red wine and handing it over. She invited her to share a drink. The atmosphere was weird. Even the netizens in the live stream could feel the awkwardness through the screen. Ruan Hanshin suddenly curled her lips into a smile and coldly questioned her sister, asking if she had really broken up with Zhong Xiaoyang. The green tea sister was about to stop her from continuing, but Ruan Hanshin raised her volume even higher. The upper-class circle is spreading rumors that your technique is very good. Instantly, the comment section completely exploded. Holy crap, can this really be said? Someone explained within 3 seconds that Zhong Xiaoyang was a young master in the upper-class circle. Furious, the green tea sister gritted her back teeth, just as she was preparing to lose her temper. Her shoulder was suddenly patted from behind. Gu Zhao stood in front of the green tea sister, holding a wine glass, standing up for her. Mrs. Hua is resolute and sharp-tongued. It really makes one look at you in a new light. The man caught her off guard by leaning his face close, causing Ruan Hanshin to involuntarily take a few steps back. Suddenly, she slapped the man hard across the face. Gu Zhao was instantly stunned by the slap. He couldn't believe the woman was hardcore enough to hit him in front of 1 million people. However, Ruan Hanshin coldly warned, "Your mouth stinks too much." Beside them, the green tea sister quickly signaled a passing waiter with her eyes. A wealthy wife actually slapped a scumbag man hard in front of a 1 million viewer live stream. The reason was simply that the man's mouth smelled bad from drinking. The netizens watching the live stream were instantly amused. However, seeing Gu Zhao actively sticking to a married woman just now, anyone would find it greasy and unbearable. Ruan Hanshin felt even more disgusted, but she was so focused on being angry that she didn't notice the green tea sister quietly signaling the waiter. He downed a glass of wine in one go. In a short while, a wave of dizziness suddenly hit him. His limbs went weak, and his body swayed uncontrollably. He immediately realized he had been drugged. Maintaining his last bit of clarity, he explained to the netizens in the live stream that he wasn't feeling well and left first. He then walked to a room upstairs to recover. The waiter followed closely behind with extra attentiveness. The waiter handed over a pre-prepared room card. The room number displayed on the card was 316. She glanced at the strange waiter. After he walked a bit further away, she pretended to be unsteady while leaning against the room door and quietly rotated the last digit of the door number to become a 9. The waiter only watched from afar and didn't notice the woman's small action. Subsequently, he received instructions from the green tea sister to take the drunk President Gu to the room. Meanwhile, she had something more important to do. She picked up a glass of wine that had been tampered with. She walked straight towards Hua Xiao with a smile. "Mr. Hua, is it convenient to spare a few minutes to have a drink with me?" However, Hua Xiao gave a cold glance and dropped the sentence, "Sorry, it's not convenient." He turned to leave, but was held back. "Mr. Hua, aren't you curious about the love story between Ruan Hanshin and her favorite man? As long as you drink this glass of wine, I can tell you everything you want to know." But who is Hua Chun? A legendary genius in the business world with a sharp mind, who also comes with a built-in radar for detecting green teas. He knew very well that his wife's past didn't matter. His wife's present and future belonged to him, and only him. He would ask about the past personally, rather than listening to hearsay, especially from a woman with dirty thoughts. Hua Xiao mercilessly knocked over the wine glass and left, leaving the green tea sister standing there grinding her teeth in extreme jealousy, screaming internally that such a perfect man should be hers. Fortunately, this type of drug was effective even in the air. Sure enough, a moment later, the affected Hua Xiao was supported by a waiter and sent to room 319 to rest. On the other side, the green tea sister was already immersed in the fantasy of becoming Mrs. Hua, as long as she could muddle through tonight, and make him believe she was still innocent. Given Hua Xiao's character, he would definitely take responsibility for her. Thus, she excitedly opened the door to another room labeled 319. In a dark room, by the moonlight, a man could be vaguely seen lying on the bed. Without hesitation, she quickly unbuttoned her coat and climbed onto the bed without a word. A wealthy wife was plotted against by the green tea sister to be sent to a scumbag, but by a twist of fate, she was sent to her contract husband's room. But it caused her husband to battle with himself all night without sleep. Just moments ago, Hua Xiao, who had already been affected, was sent to room 319 by the waiter. His cheeks were burning, he was thirsty, and his body felt hot. Relying on his limited theoretical knowledge, he immediately realized he had been drugged. Now he just needed to rest and wait for the drug's effects to pass. However, when he stumbled to the bedside, he found someone lying on the bed. It seemed this was a carefully calculated trap. He instantly became angry and roared at the person on the bed, "Get out!" But the person on the bed didn't move. He became even more furious, thinking of how he had kept himself pure for over 20 years and now, finally, had someone in his heart. He would absolutely not allow himself to have anything happen with another woman. So, he violently lifted the sheet. After seeing the person on the bed clearly, he was instantly stunned. Where was there any other woman? It was clearly the beautiful wife he held in his heart. Ruan Hanshin, who had also been drugged, opened her eyes in a daze. Through the haze, she saw a tall man staring straight at her. Without thinking, she pounced forward, pinning the man onto the bed, intending to teach this lecher a lesson with her fists. At this moment, Hua Xiao quickly spoke, "Madam, be gentle. It's me." Only then did Ruan Hanshin sober up a tiny bit. Recognizing that the person was her own husband, she stopped her fist in time. But under the influence of the drug, her brain began to get dizzy again. A blush gradually appeared on her exquisite cheeks. Hua Xiao, afraid his wife would sway and fall, hurriedly pulled her arm. Unexpectedly, Ruan Hanshin took a mile when given an inch and started teasing the man. She gently tugged at the man's sliding Adam's apple, lowered her head to his ear, and seduced him softly. "My husband is truly beautiful. You've won the queen's heart." Hua Xiao was teased into confusion, his heart faintly anticipating something. Suddenly, his shoulder felt heavy. At the critical moment, his wife had fallen asleep again. He could only sigh helplessly. The tip of his nose was full of the woman's faint, girlish fragrance. Inner desire rolled in wave after wave. He tentatively pulled at his wife's collar, but then he suddenly stopped, his hand raised uncontrollably. Soon he stopped again. After repeating this back and forth a dozen times, he closed his eyes, used all his strength to suppress the desire in his heart, and fled to the bathroom in defeat. While taking a cold shower, he warned himself that since his wife trusted him so much, he absolutely could not take advantage of her precarious situation. Just as he came out from the cold shower, seeing his beautiful wife's stunning sleeping face, the desire he had just calmed down surged again. He could only flee back to the bathroom in defeat once more. "You are Huichun, the calm and self-possessed Huichun. How can your self-control be this poor?" It wasn't until the sky began to brighten that Ruan Hanshin got up in a daze. She saw Hua Xiao sitting solemnly on a chair. However, the dark circles under the man's eyes showed that he hadn't slept all night. She couldn't help pursing her lips and laughing out loud. Subsequently, when she got up to go to the bathroom to wash up, she was surprised to find that the entire bathroom was dripping wet. She instantly understood that her husband had given her the utmost respect last night. As a reward, she kissed the man hard on the cheek. Hua Xiao was a bit startled, but he didn't regret it at all. Beautiful things in this world always require waiting. I believe that as long as I wait patiently, I will eventually get what I want. Ruan Hanshin felt like she was drowning in the deep affection in the man's eyes, and her heart skipped several beats. Immediately, she turned and fled shyly. She was a straightforward person who went straight to the point. She also understood that a drop of kindness should be repaid with a spring. Last night, someone sneakily drugged Ruan Hanshin. This morning, Ruan Hanshin openly shoved a pill into the green tea sister's mouth. "Taste some good stuff." The green tea sister didn't know what kind of poison this was and panicked inside, immediately spitting it out. But Ruan Hanshin suddenly leaned close and warned in an icy tone, "Don't you know what you ate? Think carefully about what you did last night." Ruan Hanshin, always seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Look out for yourself. After speaking, she took Hua Xiao's arm and left dashingly, leaving the green tea sister staring in exasperation. Suddenly, she glanced at the room number Ruan Hanshin had just walked out of. It was actually 319 too. Without even thinking, it must have been Ruan Hanshin using dirty tricks that caused her to miss Hua Xiao, such a perfect man, once again. Fortunately, she had prepared in advance. Even though she slept with the wrong man, she successfully made Gu Zhao believe it was her first time. Coupled with her habitual act of playing innocent and pitiful, now that she had latched on a Gu Zhao, this wealthy young master, it wasn't a loss. Most importantly, the second young master doted on her and was willing to invest a lot of money to make her famous. But she forgot to ask around about Gu Zhao's character, a man who has been through countless women and doesn't take a shred of responsibility. His methods are vicious, and he is treacherous. He can even be cruel to his own sister. Such a man only didn't want a scene. So he barely perfunctorily acted with false affection. When they were further away, Hui Xiao curiously asked what she had just fed her. Ruan Hanxin replied with a mischievous smile, "It was just a common vitamin." Hui Xiao's cheeks instantly flushed slightly. He thought what to do. The badder my wife is, the more I love her. It was calm for 2 days. Suddenly, a marketing account on the internet exposed a scandal about Shen Nai, slandering Shen Nai for not filming, but instead dating a punk. And the punk referred to as Xiao Bai. Some netizens expressed disbelief, but were immediately drowned out by a large number of Water Army comments leading the rhythm. Subsequently, it was also exposed that Shen Nai violently beat the popular young flower Ruan Weici on set. The public always detested stars acting like divas and bullying incidents. Shen Nai's image hit rock bottom before she even debuted. The moment Ruan Hanxin scrolled to the news, she wished she could travel through the phone to teach them a lesson. Furious, she greeted Hui Xiao and prepared to go to the set to take a look. "Madam, won't you consider taking me along?" Bam! Poor Hui Xiao was forcibly left behind, becoming a latchkey child. At the filming set, Shen Nai had just been frequently rejected and was apologizing to the director dejectedly. Seeing Ruan Hanxin arrive, she quickly explained that she went to visit the sick Xiao by a few days ago, but unexpectedly was secretly photographed and posted online. Ruan Hanxin hurriedly comforted her not to worry. Suddenly, she accidentally scanned a strange face on the scene. It was Wen Qing, the movie queen whom the director had painstakingly invited for a cameo. Movie queen, when had always been straightforward and hated evil. Now, because of the black material online, she wanted to terminate the cooperation. However, hearing that she hated evil, Ruan Hanxin instantly got excited. She stepped forward and greeted her warmly, but she received a cold reply. "I don't like unprofessional crews." But she was not discouraged. Movie Queen 1, "Why don't you look at Shen Nai's script before making a decision?" Opening the script, she saw it was densely packed with notes written in different colored pens. One could see Shen Nai's dedication at a glance. Movie Queen, when instantly fell silent, according to her observations on set during this time. As a newcomer, Shen Nai indeed performed well and didn't have those bad habits written in the reports. After thinking for a moment, she returned the script and didn't mention terminating the cooperation again. This matter was considered past. Now, only handling the negative reports that were continuing to ferment remained. Suddenly, the trending search pushed a new post from Movie Queen Wen's account. "Shen Nai is a very good girl, but a certain traffic flower became even more arrogant and domineering after getting together with a certain entrepreneur. She didn't say anything specific, yet seemed to say everything." With the Movie Queen's endorsement, the direction of public opinion regarding Shen Nai completely changed. Ruan Hanxin was no longer the PR novice from before. Now that the momentum was right, she pursued while victorious and also posted a clarification. "The three of us grew up together, our relationship close as siblings." She also uploaded a photo of the three from their childhood. After posting, she heard Shen Nai mention Movie Queen 1. "She's cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. It's just that she often has bruises on her body. She always says she fell accidentally." Ruan Hanxin replied skeptically, "Is that so?" A wealthy wife is actually going on a variety show with her contract husband. The same season also invited the scumbag and the green tea, plus her husband from her past life and his current girlfriend. At first, when Ruan Hanxin received the invitation from the program team, she had a faint bad premonition. She felt something was wrong, but couldn't put her finger on it. It wasn't until she heard the program team say they would film in the West District that she reluctantly nodded in agreement. Sure enough, as soon as she got home, her omnipotent husband, Hui Xiao, had already found out. This program was held by the rookie entertainment company invested in by Gu Zhao. At the same time, it invited Gu Zhao and the Green Tea sister, this newly appointed couple. Strangely, the filming location happened to be in the West District, which Gu Zhao looked down upon the most. There must be some other purpose. However, Ruan Hanxin thought about it again. The invested movie was worrying about follow-up promotion. She could use this variety show to properly promote the West District Development Project and the movie she invested in. The most important thing was that she didn't have to pay a cent. It was all paid for by her nemesis. On the day filming started, the couple coincidentally both wore blue-toned clothes. For ease of movement, Won Hanshin specially chose a workwear suit today. Paired with her 1.8-meter-long legs, her whole person looked incredibly cool. The filming location was in the most remote mountainous area of the West District, desolate and barren. Won Hanshin took off her sunglasses, intending to take a good look around. What is this broken place? It's so dirty. In the distance, a pretentious and unpleasant voice was heard, and the only person in this world who could make such a sound. That was only one person. Looking towards the sound, sure enough, it was the green tea sister herself. She got out of the car, supported by Gu Zhao. Luxury car, evening gown, suit, those who didn't know better would think. Thought the two were here to attend some banquet. The green tea sister hurriedly came over, mocking sarcastically, people coming out of this kind of poor place probably have no class. Sister, you'd better not waste your effort developing it. Won Hanshin suddenly approached and threatened coldly. Sister, you must be cautious with your words and actions this time. After all, I have all of Sister's purchase records in my hand. Hearing this, the green tea sister hurriedly denied it, saying she didn't buy any drug. Won Hanshin smiled lightly. Not just drugs, right? If Gu Zhao knew your first time was fake, guess how he would treat you? Suddenly, another pair of guests walked past them. A man wearing a green sweatshirt, and following behind him was actually Movie Queen One. Won Hanshin ignored the green tea sister and turned to greet Movie Queen One affectionately, casually thanking her for helping Shun Nai clarify the black material on her account last time. While speaking, she tentatively took the other's hand and squeezed slightly. Movie Queen One immediately made a sound of pain, then awkwardly explained, I just accidentally fell and got hurt while working. Won Hanshin didn't believe it. She rolled up the other's sleeve on her own. She saw the slender arm covered in blue and purple bruises. Judging by her years of fighting experience, these injuries were definitely not from falling. Then it was very likely. Thinking of this possibility, she extended a helping hand to her with heartache. Movie Queen One, you're not a bad person. You shouldn't suffer this kind of unfair treatment. Let me help you. Movie Queen One's husband, Ma Sinan, suddenly doubled back and urged impatiently, dawdling all day long. It's bad enough you love showing off, but you even walk so slowly. Movie Queen One could only throw an apology to Won Hanshin, hide her body, and follow her husband quickly forward. Soon, the last group of guests also arrived. The person who came was actually Won Hanshin's husband from her past life, the green tea sister's ex-boyfriend, Zhong Xiaoyang. And beside him was Zhong Xiaoyang's new girlfriend, Li Min. They were a nominal contract couple. Today, however, they had to appear together on a live variety show livestream. Won Hanshin was speechless, because participating in the variety show with her was Gu Zhao, who had improper thoughts about her, bringing along her nemesis, the green tea sister. There was actually her husband from her past life, Zhong Xiaoyang. And this Zhong Xiaoyang had briefly dated the green tea sister before. This wasn't a live variety show. It could simply be called a Shura field of love and hate. As soon as Zhong Xiaoyang saw Won Hanshin, he ignored his new girlfriend's dissuasion beside him and greeted her enthusiastically. Naturally, Won Hanshin didn't give the man a pleasant look, but Zhong Xiaoyang seemed unable to read the room. He even rushed forward in a stride, grabbing her hand and expressing his longing. Won Hanshin forcefully threw off the man's hand. At this moment, the wife-doting maniac Hua Xiao quickly flashed to his wife's side, declaring sovereignty. Zhong Xiaoyang, please have some self-respect. Don't touch my wife. After the brief interlude, the director jumped out to stir things up, requiring each team of guests to use 20 yuan to purchase ingredients for dinner. Won Weici received the money and started acting sympathetic about buying ingredients for 20 yuan, saying people in the West District live so pitifully. Gu Zhao took the opportunity to shout out in the live stream, telling the government not to develop the West District. The bullet comments in the live stream were instantly wiped clean. For ordinary people, isn't 20 yuan for groceries normal? However, Won Hanshin was full of fighting spirit. For her, who grew up in the slums, this was a piece of cake. Adhering to the principle that his wife is always right, Hua Qin doted on his wife lazily, spending money freely again. The dog food was almost overflowing from the screen. The couple left together, completely ignoring the tag-along stuck behind them. Soon they arrived at the market. Won Hanshin happened to bump into Ma Sinan and Movie Queen Wenqing. Do you even know how to pick vegetables here? Is this smelly stuff for humans to eat? Movie queen, when looked embarrassed being scolded. She really couldn't stand it anymore and rushed forward with the cameraman. Mr. Ma, don't you think your attitude towards your wife just now is a bit excessive? Seeing the camera lens, Ma Sinan turned around and accused her. Thank you for your reminder, but please don't interfere in other people's family affairs at will. Movie queen would help me before. I only came over to look because I saw Mr. Ma was about to hit someone. Hearing these sensitive words, Ma Sinan angrily spat out psycho and stormed off. On the other side, Ruan Weishi found her rival's rival, the current girlfriend Li Min, whom Zhong Xiaoyang had left behind. She took the chance to instigate. Ruan Hanxin always likes to flirt in front of Zhong Xiaoyang. That's why Zhong Xiaoyang abandoned you. Thinking of her boyfriend's attitude just now, Li Min's eyes instantly dimmed, but she didn't know what to do. Ruan Weishi suggested, you should teach Ruan Hanxin a lesson. Let her know you are not to be messed with. That way, Zhong Xiaoyang will come back to your side. Li Min felt this didn't seem quite right, but she wasn't willing to let the man she liked be stolen away. So she decided to be tough for love once. The beautiful and sassy hardcore wealthy wife was actually falsely accused by a rival today. A bad woman who knows social witchcraft. Before the cheap talk even started, it turned out Li Min, under Ruan Weishi's provocation, got competitively and secretly followed behind Ruan Hanxin. Seeing the cameraman had walked far away, she forced a strong aura and strode forward, pointing at Ruan Hanxin and accusing her, you actually seduce men behind your husband's back. Ruan Hanxin was suddenly scolded and felt a bit confused. Anyone with eyes can see it's Zhong Xiaoyang pestering me, okay? You stay away from brother Xiaoyang. Don't seduce my brother Xiaoyang for no reason. Joke me seduce him? Do you need me to crowdfund to cure your eyes? After just one round, Li Min, who had never quarreled before, didn't know what to curse. Humiliated and angry, she could only shout in rage. Anyway, just don't harass brother Xiaoyang. Ruan Hanxin suddenly felt that the girl in front of her was just a love brain. Immediately, she showed her phone with the harassing messages sent by Zhong Xiaoyang. Zhong Xiaoyang was just like a simp, licking and confessing. Li Min was instantly stunned. She couldn't believe her male god would do such a thing. The strong woman looking for a fight instantly turned into an injured little girl. Bitterness surged in her heart. Gradually, she lowered her head and started sobbing. The sudden blow made her lose control of her emotions. Suddenly, she lunged at the woman in front of her. Fortunately, Ruan Hanxin dodged agilely. However, due to excessive momentum, Li Min couldn't break in time. With a splash, she fell into a large basin of fish nearby, soaked and looking very pathetic. Just then, Ruan Hanxin saw Hui Chun, who had finished buying vegetables, walking over, followed by a cameraman. To avoid the little girl's ugly state being live-streamed online, she kindly wanted to help Li Min up, but was angrily rejected by the other party. She instantly got anxious. If you don't want to appear in front of the camera looking like this ghost, get up quickly. Li Min's heart trembled instantly. It seemed, perhaps, maybe she really was a good person. Soon, with Ruan Hanxin's support, Li Min quickly stood up. But Ruan Hanxin only explained lightly to the camera, the little girl accidentally fell. This made Li Min lower her head in embarrassment. Subsequently, Ruan Hanxin discussed with the stall owner uncle to buy all the fish in the basin. The simple and honest uncle waved his hand. No need to buy, no need to buy. Is the girl all right? Netizens in a live stream praised the stall owner for being nice. Some lamented that people in the West District were so simple and honest. Helplessly, Ruan Hanxin insisted on buying the fish. However, hearing the stall owner say it cost 20 yuan in total, she started to struggle, because she only had the 10 yuan left from Hua Chen's grocery shopping in her pocket. It was only resolved when Movie Queen won and Li Min each sponsored 5 yuan. At this moment, Li Min suddenly realized, how could she have a tiny impulse to be friends with Ruan Hanxin? Could she cast bewitching spells? No, I must stay away from the bad woman. A domestic abuser who gave him the courage. He actually dared to run in front of the female boss of the slums and shamelessly say he wanted to teach her what male superiority is. He thought by doing this, he could keep the secret forever. Little did he know, he had personally delivered the evidence of domestic violence. Back at the market, Ruan Hanxin's unusual performance when dealing with Li Min's provocation. Movie Queen saw it all, and her heart was touched. Perhaps Ruan Hanxin could really help her escape those days stuck in the quagmire. never seeing sunlight or a future. Even if that shameful matter would be known by everyone, yet she still wanted to try. Seeing her hesitate and ask in a low voice, "Is it true what you said before, that you can help me?" Won Hanshin was stunned. She didn't understand why Movie Queen would suddenly change her decision. But no matter the reason, she would try her best to help. After returning from the market, the director team announced that they would pair up to make dinner. In order to get close to Ma Sinan and collect evidence of domestic violence as soon as possible, Won Hanshin actively proposed a group with Movie Queen Wen's couple. Everyone was busy with their work in the kitchen. Only Zhong Xiaoyang stuck to Won Hanshin like a plaster. "Hanshin, what are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with?" Won Hanshin was about to die of annoyance. If it weren't for the live stream, she really wanted to chop the man's head off like a fish head. Also unable to explode due to the cameras were two others, the depressed Witchun, Dot, and the Lostly Men. After a while, Won Hanshin went to the backyard alone to get firewood. Seeing this, Ruan Weisi decided to incite Ma Sinan to teach Won Hanshin a lesson. After making up her mind, she intentionally leaned close to the man and lowered her voice. "Brother Sinan, don't you think Won Hanshin's high and mighty, self-righteous look is annoying? Whether in society or at home, women should unconditionally obey men." This speech advocating male superiority immediately won Ma Sinan's approval. Ma Sinan instantly became a bit arrogant. "Cooking is originally a woman's job. It has nothing to do with us men. As for disobedient women, they will naturally have retribution." After speaking, he put his hands in his pockets and turned to walk to the backyard. He didn't notice that behind him, Ruan Weisi was looking at his figure with a face full of disgust. Backyard. Won Hanshin was considering whether to record a video on how to distinguish dry and wet firewood. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a lighter behind her. So she instinctively turned her head and kindly reminded Ma Sinan, "There is firewood here. Smoking is prohibited." However, Ma Sinan didn't care at all and shouted with an extremely arrogant attitude, "My wife Movie Queen, one has plenty of money. Even if I burn this place down, she will obediently pay for it. Mrs. Hua, I see your husband doesn't know how to control women. Today I'll take the trouble to teach you properly on his behalf what male superiority is." Won Hanshin frowned and scolded sternly, "A scumbag who does things against nature. You dare to lecture me?" Ma Sinan was instantly enraged. Just as he planned to raise his hand to hit her, Won Hanshin anticipated it and kicked the man in the abdomen. Immediately after, she threw a punch with all her might. Unexpectedly, it was blocked by the man. She smiled coldly and flew another beautiful kick. This time she directly kicked him in the family jewels. Ma Sinan immediately curled up in pain and screamed. At the same time, Won Hanshin picked up a thick piece of firewood. Acting as a mace, she questioned him condescendingly. "I just spoke a few words for Movie Queen One, and you want revenge and get physical? It seems you don't treat Movie Queen One very well usually." Ma Sinan was beaten until his whole body was weak. Only his mouth remained tough. "Women like you just need a beating. So what if when Sheen is a movie queen? If she's not obedient at home, I'll beat her. Beat her until she's obedient, until she submits. It's just the two of us now. So what if I said it? Who would believe it?" After speaking, he showed a sinister, triumphant face. But Won Hanshin waved the phone in her hand. "Sorry, I was preparing to record a video before you came. You came and I was busy, so I forgot to turn it off. Your disgusting look just now happened to be recorded too." Ma Sinan panicked upon hearing this. Just as he was preparing to rush forward to snatch the phone, Won Hanshin gave him a blow to the head to make him settle down. Muttering that there's no peace even on a variety show, there's always someone looking for trouble again and again. It seems someone is stirring things up behind the scenes. Never did she expect the righteous youth she admired when she was young. After marriage, he actually used his fists on her. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, shattering her beautiful illusions about love. But she still only chose to divorce, just to put a period on the past heartbeat. Just now, Won Hanshin beat up the shameless domestic abuser and notified the staff to call an ambulance for him. But hearing this, Movie Queen Wen calmly continued cooking, as if this matter had nothing to do with her. Suddenly, Won Hanshin leaned in her ear and whispered, "I've recorded the video of Ma Sinan personally admitting to beating you. If you need it, I'll send it to you." She was instantly stunned. When she asked Won Hanshin for help before, Honestly, she didn't have much hope. Unexpectedly, Ruan Hanshin got the evidence so quickly. It seems she really wants to help me. Movie Queen Wen's mood was complicated, not knowing what to say. Finally, she only whispered, "Thank you, Ruan." Hanshin sensed her cramping and uneasiness, so she quickly changed the topic to tonight's dinner. Obviously, the other group, Ruan Weisi and Li Min, had no cooking experience. Both were in a flurry, like fighting a war. Finally, dinner was ready. Ma Sinan, who was bandaged up, came to the table and criticized the dinner in every way. The director immediately brought out the West District's specialty grape wine as compensation. You should know, Mrs. Hu spent a lot of money for the program team on this. The unaware Ruan Weisi felt strange. Clearly, she had agreed with the director beforehand to use high-end red wine from the East District. This way netizens could compare and see the West District. That was hopelessly poor. Hua Chun doggedly surrounded his wife, serving her carefully. At the same time, the innocent Li Min took a sip and couldn't help praising that this wine tasted better than what she usually drank. Netizens in the live stream couldn't help being curious, real or fake. The West District actually has such good wine? Soon it was the post-dinner truth, or dare game segment. The rule was the guest who drew the joker could use any guest's phone to call someone. When drawing cards, Ruan Weisi deliberately spoke sarcastically beside Ruan Hanshin's couple. "Sister, aren't you afraid the call will be made to some inconvenient men?" Ruan Hanshin retorted unceremoniously, "Sister, is there something shameful in your phone? Aren't you afraid of being drawn?" "I was just joking." "Sister, don't think too much. I can apologize." "I was just joking." "Sister, don't think too much. I can apologize." Ruan Hanshin imitated Ruan Weisi exactly. Netizens laughed to death. Indeed, walking the green tea's path leaves the green tea with no path to walk. The one who drew the joker in the first round was actually Ma Sinan. To embarrass his wife, he specifically chose to call his wife's good friend, the current movie king, Jin Qingxi. He even turned on the speakerphone. As soon as the call connected, hearing it was Ma Sinan and not Movie Queen Wen's voice, Movie King Jin immediately said he would hang up if there was nothing important. But Ma Sinan talked endlessly, saying things that made people imagine wild things. Is Movie King Jin treating me as a love rival? But I have to thank Movie King Jin for his special care of my wife. Without your special channel, how could Wen Qing have become a movie queen? I just don't know if this care and channel were pure or not. As soon as the words fell, Movie Queen Wen felt shocked. Is he crazy saying such things? How can she face people in the future? On the other end of the call, Movie King Jin roared disdainfully, "Put away your dirty thoughts." I simply introduced her to the director. Xiao Qing won the movie queen title relying on hard work and strength. But Ma Sinan relentlessly asked in front of the camera if Movie Queen Wen and Movie King Jin had an ambiguous relationship. Ruan Hanshin on the side really couldn't listen anymore. It's really the first time I've seen someone actively putting a green hat on his own head. Ma Sinan even mocked Ruan Hanshin, asking if she also often did things that didn't follow women's morals. Who gave you the guts to actually dare to create rumors about my wife? Hua Chun was instantly enraged upon hearing this. Just as he planned to rush forward to teach him a lesson, Ruan Hanshin suddenly held him down. "Hubby, don't pay attention to him. We shouldn't lower ourselves to the level of this kind of person." She stepped forward and kicked Ma Sinan, chair and all flying. Seeming not relieved enough, she kicked the man's back twice more. The comments section instantly went numb. What happened to not lowering yourself to his level? Is this a second level of dealing with him? Ma Sinan stepped on the ground, regretted it. "Wife, Wen Qing, make her stop quickly. Don't forget our secret. She is an infinitely glorious international movie queen. Yet she suffered domestic violence from her husband in her marriage. For the sake of past palpitations, she chose to swallow her anger and endure silently. To keep that unbearable secret, she actually held back tears and pleaded for the scumbag to Ruan Hanshin, who was standing up for her. Miss Ruan, I think he has learned his lesson. Just let him go." Ruan Hanshin instantly didn't understand what exactly she was afraid of. But just then, Ma Sinan suddenly crawled up from the ground and quickly slapped Movie Queen Wen fiercely. "Today you made me lose face completely. Then I don't need to keep the secret. I'll make it so you can't even be a human anymore." Hearing that the secret was to be exposed, Movie Queen Wen was instantly terrified, tears streaming down, begging him not to say it. Although Ruan Hanshin didn't know what the secret referred to, she could see that this secret was very important to movie queen one. She decided to scare the person first. Wen Qing is your wife. Don't you think you should consider her feelings? Immediately, she bent down to comfort the tearful movie queen one, whispering to persuade her to be brave. Don't endure anymore. You can't be threatened by a scumbag with a secret forever. After a long silence, movie queen, when finally decided to rise up and resist, she announced loudly, Ma Sinan, I've had enough. I want to divorce you. Ma Sinan was completely furious. He pulled out the power cord of the live broadcast camera. He grabbed movie queen Wen's hand and tried to drag her out, but was stopped in time by Ruan Hanshin. Just as Ma Sinan was throwing a tantrum, Ruan Hanshin suddenly received an investigation text message from her assistant regarding Ma Sinan. Ma Sinan once used the account name Rich and Handsome's Pickup Daily on a banned website to publish a video suspected to be movie queen when being gang raped while drugged. Ruan Hanshin had lived 2 lives and had never seen such a disgusting scumbag. Furious, she immediately sent the video of the scumbag admitting to domestic violence to her assistant, ordering them to organize all evidence and hand it to the police. At this moment, this disgusting scumbag still wanted to hit someone in front of her again. She rushed up without thinking to stop him. Rich and Handsome's Pickup Daily. Why aren't you updating today? Ma Sinan was instantly stunned, and the innocent Li Min suddenly thought of something. Her father had once banned a bad website. Inside, there was this account that posted a video resembling movie queen one. Millions of views, lots of profit. But in the end, it was unsettled because the IP couldn't be located. Everyone present cast contemptuous looks. Only movie queen one was silent. She only felt she was truly a big joke. 5 years ago, she was drugged and gang raped and threatened by the other party with a video not to call the police. She had only mentioned this matter to her husband Ma Sinan. Who would have thought her husband would use this to threaten her and beat her? Today she finally understood. From the drugging and rape to the video being posted online, the real mastermind behind the scenes was actually her husband. Ruan Hanshin instantly exploded in rage. She kicked the scumbag to his knees with one foot, shouting loudly, apologized to her. The scandal was out. Ma Sinan still had the face to smile sinisterly. You have no evidence. What can you do to me? In the quiet room, a man's voice suddenly came from a mobile phone. Who says there is no evidence? I recorded the whole process just now. It turned out movie King Jin's call had never been hung up, and the police happened to arrive at the scene too. Ma Sinan, your good days are over. A live broadcast could successfully save a woman suffering from domestic violence. It can also make a serious man suddenly become unserious. The man suddenly hugged his wife into his arms. Leaning close to his wife's ear, he murmured, I want to selfishly keep you by my side forever. As a condition of exchange, I offer my whole heart with both hands. And my whole body. When a serious man starts flirting, it's simply fatal, making the woman instantly feel a tingle. At the end of the live variety show, with the sudden arrival of the police, the slow-witted Li Min finally reacted. Just now she had publicly uncovered movie queen Wen's scars. She felt very guilty in her heart, so she quickly apologized to her. Fortunately, movie queen Wen clearly distinguished between love and hate and didn't blame her at all. However, this incident made Li Min deeply realize that the consequences of a girl being a love brain are very serious. Wait, she suddenly associated this with her beloved brother Xiaoyang. The man openly prepared to unite with her, but secretly harassed Ruan Hanshin. After all, she herself was also a love brain. No, one absolutely cannot be a love brain. Thinking of this, Li Min turned around and gave Zhong Xiao a heavy punch. We're breaking up, the alliance is cancelled. Scumbag, get lost. After roaring, she quickly left the scene amidst everyone's speechless gazes. It was a scene where everyone was happy, yet only the green tea sister couldn't smile. She scoffed in her heart, Ruan Hanshin, just you wait. That night, the trending searches immediately shifted to hot topics regarding movie queen Wen in the West District. After careful consideration, movie queen Wen chose to bravely and proactively make her scandal public. From Ma Sinan drugging her 5 years ago to having multiple people violate her, to the domestic violence she suffered from Ma Sinan for many years. Unexpectedly, she won over even more fans. Netizens felt nothing but heartache for her. After returning home and reading the posts, Ruan Hanshin did not contact Movie Queen 1 for the time being. After all, no matter how strong a woman is, she needs some time to heal alone when encountering such things. With the continuous fermentation of positive reports about the West District online, Xiao finally received news from the relevant departments about convening the West District bidding meeting. Ruan Hanshin was very excited to be able to help the place where she grew up become better and better. However, deep down, she was most grateful to her husband who had been silently working hard for this. Mr. Hua, thank you for your efforts. However, Xiao nonchalantly attributed all the credit to his wife. This is all due to Mrs. Hua's credit. You have contributed far more than I have. Suddenly, Ruan Hanshin leaned close to Hua Xiao and blinked mischievously. In that case, has Hua Xiao thought about how to thank me? The man suddenly and gently pulled his wife tightly into his arms, whispering in her ear, "Thank you for appearing in my life. I know my thought is very selfish and domineering, but I just want you to stay by my side forever. As a condition of exchange, I offer up my whole heart with both hands, as well as my entire body." It has to be said, when a serious man starts flirting, it's truly lethal. Ruan Hanshin instantly felt a tingle in her heart. The sweet atmosphere was just right for doing some improper things. Suddenly, it was broken by the sound of arguing outside the window. It turned out that the four little ones were fighting for the best position to peek. While the whole family was happy, second young Master Gu was worrying about the East District Development Project. To curry favor with this big financier, the Green Tea Sister suddenly came up with a plan. They could imitate Ruan Hanshin and donate to the poor households in the East District. Once the media reported it, they would immediately have a good reputation. With a good reputation, people would naturally support the development of the East District. After hearing this, second young Master Gu felt it made some sense, so he readily took out a bank card. Use the money in this card however you like. Any money left over after buying the donation supplies belongs to you. Hearing this, the Green Tea Sister was overjoyed. By imitating her nemesis sister, she secured a financier. Now repeating her old tricks, she wanted to imitate her sister's charity work to gain a good reputation. Unfortunately, an imitation is ultimately fake and can never replace the original. On this side, the Green Tea Sister was distributing cheap box lunches as fake charity. On that side, Ruan Hanshin directly brought in an ambulance and doctors to stand by. Sure enough, in no time at all, someone fell to the ground in abdominal pain after eating a spoiled box lunch. It was Ruan Hanshin who immediately called the doctor for emergency treatment. The people on the scene immediately roared at the Green Tea Sister. "You actually use spoiled box lunches for charity. That is too much. So hypocritical." However, even though the Green Tea Sister was in the wrong, that she arrogantly cursed back, "Just take what you're given. What do you get off having so many demands? It's good enough that I'm donating it all, yet you dare to pick and choose?" She looked completely unrepentant. Ruan Hanshin couldn't be bothered to waste words with this kind of person. She directly grabbed a bag of box lunches, preparing to take it back for testing. If someone really suffered because of this, she would not let the Green Tea Sister off. At this moment, the Green Tea Sister was already frantic to the point of madness. To cover up her scandal, she actually offered $2 million to order her subordinate to hit someone with a car. Under the temptation of money, the man actually dared to ignore his conscience and drove the car speeding towards Ruan Hanshin. In the instant before the collision, the agile Ruan Hanshin suddenly supported herself with one hand and easily vaulted over. Under the Green Tea Sister's astonished gaze, she landed safely with a beautiful movement. This caused the unwillingness pent up in the Green Tea Sister's heart to instantly explode. "I have always been better than you in every way. But now, you not only stole my husband, but also ruined my life. Ruan Hanshin, what exactly do you want to do?" She was simply an unreasonable shrew. But Ruan Hanshin was not a pushover who would swallow her anger. She suddenly choked the other party's neck fiercely. "Ruan Weici, get this straight. It is you who are destroying my current lifetime and time again. I will not just let today's matter go." After leaving behind those cold words, she strode away. Back at the Hua residence, Hua Xiao heard about what happened during the day and rubbed his wife's hair worriedly. Today was really too dangerous. Next time, no matter what you do, remember to call me. Hua Lao San, who was on the side, heard this and immediately shouted excitedly, "Sister-in-law, there's also me. Remember to call me." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone else cast looks of disdain at him. Why do you have to be involved in everything? Coincidentally, the inspection report for the box lunches came out at that moment. Without a second word, Ruan Hanshin asked her assistant to post it online. She also exposed the bad things she had done, one by one. The weather has turned cold. It is time to make sure someone can never recover. Soon, an official account exposed that Ruan Weisi had donated inferior products. It even exposed her mother rising to power as a mistress, as well as the previous incident of drugging her own sister. As negative comments continued to flood the internet, the green tea sister was already so stressed she was on the verge of a breakdown. At this time, her boyfriend, second young Master Gu, not only did not comfort her, but instead furiously threw out the information he had privately investigated. Ruan Weisi, you even dared to lie to me about something like your first time. Now notorious, the only person she could rely on was the boyfriend in front of her. No matter what, she had to hold on tight. Honey, you usually like touching my face the most. Touch my face. I will handle this matter properly. Please forgive me. Unexpectedly, she was heartlessly pushed away by the man. Are you planning to use the money I gave you to clean up this mess? Can you make up for the loss in stock prices? Or the reputational damage caused to the Gu family? I want you to move out of here by tomorrow. Suddenly, the man scoffed coldly. You only look a little bit like Ruan Hanshin, that's all. And everything else, you can't compare to her. After saying this, the man heartlessly slammed the door and left, leaving the green tea sister helpless, collapsing onto the cold floor.